Welcome to the Fantasy Fangirls podcast, where two sisters dive deep into beloved fantasy lore, character themes, theories, and more. I'm Lexi, older sister and fantasy lore nerd. And I'm Nicole, younger sister and romantic at heart. And today is episode 6 of Brimstone by Callie Hart, where we are covering chapters 37 through 45. This might be our second to last episode, but you know we've got to do our spoiler warning. So, spoilers for all of Brimstone. Yes, that includes the end. We may also reference any of the bonus chapters from Quicksilver or Brimstone.
Tal and Iseabail has been up to some sneaky shit. Iseabail has been up to some sneakier shit. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then please go finish the book. We will be here when you're done.
Next, we have Fantasy Fangirls, are adults who say adult things about adult books. In other words, friends, this podcast is rated R.
Kingfisher can do a lot of things. A lot of things in 3 minutes. So please be mindful of those little listening ears.
A few extra exciting announcements for you all today.
This week on Instagram, you, our incredible audience, are voting for what we cover after our upcoming 4-part Fantasy Fan Guide series on Throne of Glass. You can find the link to vote in our social media bio, or you can also find it on our website, fantasyfangirls.com. We cannot wait to see what you all choose.
Our fate is literally in your hands. We're not panicking at all. Don't worry about it. And friends, drum roll please. We are thrilled to share that on Sunday, April 19th, we are doing a live show at Neptune Theater in Seattle.
Who's ready to deep dive How to Train Your Dragon? Me! It's my favorite movie ever. I'm so excited. Tickets go on sale this Friday, January 16th.
We're also so excited to see you at other upcoming live events, like on March 6th through 8th in Dallas, Texas. Nicole and I will be podcast partners at Dreamers and Readers Festival.
Then, on April 8th, we are partnering with the Denver Nuggets and Rebecca Yarros for a Fourth Wing themed basketball game at Ball Arena. Whew, that's a lot. So check out our website or the links below for more information to all of these events, including a promo code for Dreamers and Readers. And in case you missed it, welcome, Fantasy Fan Fellas, to the Fantasy Fangirls Media Network.
Our very own executive producer Hayden and Book Talk star Stephen Walker just wrapped up season 1 of Fantasy Fan Fellas, where they dive deep into Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn. Each episode only includes spoilers up to the chapters covered.
The whole first season is available on the Fantasy Fan Fellas feed. Link is in the show notes.
Last thing before we jump into Brimstone episode 6. If you love Fantasy Fangirls and want more events, more content, more community, and so much more, please check out Fantasy Fan Club.
We have 3 membership tiers that you can join. Number 1 is the Hive Mind, which includes access to our Boppin' Discord, live Q&As from Lexi and I, a book club, often featuring the authors themselves for live Q&As, community events, promo codes for live events, plus 20% off and access to exclusive merch. That is for $6 a month. Or you can join the Spice Watchers, which includes everything from the Hive Mind level, plus early access to ad-free episodes, our full episode outlines, and special voting privileges. That is for $10 a month. And last but not least, we have the Feral Fans, which includes everything from the previous 2 tiers, plus more behind-the-scenes content, a welcome gift, giveaways, private Discord channel, and your name shouted out on the podcast. That is for $25 a month.
Join the party at fantasyfangirls.com/fan club. The link is also in the show notes. We are also currently running a special where if you choose to get an annual membership, you get 3 months for free. Thank you so much for supporting us as we've turned this podcast into a literal dream come true. We appreciate you with all of our hearts, and Happy New Year, everybody.
And now, it is time to dismantle the Blood Court. Dun, dun, dun.
To start off every episode, Nicole does us the honor of summarizing this stretch of chapters. So gather round as we sing Loris' ballad to discuss what happens in chapters 37 through 45 of Brimstone. Whew! Nicole, there's a lot that happens in these chapters.
No kidding! Chapter 37. It's almost time for the Evenlight Ball, but first a small detour before they enter the hall. While facing the mirror, they only have 3 minutes. Fisher knows he can get it done within the time limit. Chapter 38. The Hall of Tears has completely transformed, but it doesn't take long for Saeris to be scorned. First things first, Saeris must be disavowed. Just a few words from Tal and she's throwing up in front of the crowd. Now it's it's time to pick a new Lord of Midnight, but none of these 5 options feel quite right. Saeris has another option in mind. Foley walks down to the dais, and the crowd is not kind. Chapter 39. Edina of the 7 Spires has a trick up her sleeve, but the other Lords of Midnight seriously can't believe Saeris chose Foley instead of one of their own. That wolf is not welcome here. On and on they drone. Down on his knees, Foley shocks the court by swearing his fealty to Saeris where Malcolm fell short. But now it is time for the Evenlight show. Saeris can't help but look at the sky and go, whoa. That's not the only sight they see as the vampires are dropping down to their knees. 1, 2, 3, shit, no 4. All of the high bloods are falling to the floor. They only have one last choice to make. Either take the cure or a new curse will overtake. Chapter 40. Well, Tal wanted to go out with a bang, but he's lucky Saeris doesn't rip out his fangs. Dragging his ass back to the Cahlish estate, Tal and Iseabail better get their story straight. Between her and Tal, the plan was made. She'd use her blood to kickstart the crusade. There's one part of the plan that went awry. Taladaeus was meant to drink her blood and die. The room is on fire. There's about to be an open gate to hell. The Witch Marquis War was meant to die with Tal. With the runes glowing bright, Saeris steps into the room. She dismantles the spell before the gateway goes boom. Chapter 40. Iseabail's been lying to the group for a while. She was never looking for Ren, but trying to kill the vampires in style. The tension is building. Everyone's about to explode. Saeris distracts Kingfisher with her hip bones. Carrion Swift swears he's going crazy. Every time he talks, the plants bloom like daisies. But tucked into the corner of his private quarters, Carrion's been researching what it takes to give orders. Off in the distance, the ground starts to shake. Thousands of Fey warriors have made it to the estate. Chapter 42. Danya and Lorith give Fisher the rundown. The rot has spread further with no slowdown. But now's the perfect time for some advice. Saeris cracks open the journal without thinking twice. Edina says go to the White Cliffs, but that means abandoning the front. That's the pits. What they need is Brimstone, and Lorith's got an idea indeed. But Fisher is unwilling. Instead, they will evacuate Cahlish full speed. Out in the rain stands Hayden in a rut, and finally it seems that he's gotten his head out of his butt. Life here is different than in the Silver City. He won't go back, nor will he take pity. The Hazrax is here to shine some light. The new rune on her hand was a gift, all right. Chapter 43. Iseabail lied straight to their faces, and Lorith is ready to put her through the paces. Saeris stops Kingfisher, gearing up for torture, but they cannot be like the bad guys. No, sir. The rot has made its way to the estate. It's finally time to abandon ship with haste. With the valuables in hand, they gotta leave. Through the gate they go. Maybe they can finally breathe. Chapter 44. Through the shadow gate they go, but everything's a mess. There's feeders galore, and where they came from is anyone's guess. Saeris protects Hayden with her dual god swords, but if it wasn't for Foley, she'd be lost to the horde. Something's not right. Kingfisher is missing. They need his god sword and the magic he's dishing. Even down 2 wolves, they get through the fight, but a page in the journal is missing insight. The real question right now is how the feeders got here. There's no rum portal in town. Their appearance is unclear. Chapter 45. While the inner circle has made it out alive, not everyone else was lucky to survive. Sylvina didn't make it through the fight. Now Tal is struggling with his emotional hindsight. To help him make peace, Saeris picks up his sword, and with a little alchemy, she presents it to the Lord. Pounding down the streets, the satyrs demand that the forgotten king present himself to the clan. But they don't want to harm him. That's not the plan here. Their thunderous voices are welcoming him with cheer. But then, oh dear, it dawns on Saeris. She knows where the journal paper has gone amiss.
The new year is here, and we're all talking New Year's resolutions. But one that's particularly high on our family's list is making sure that our kids are healthy, and that means taking their vitamins. That is where Haya comes in.
Some children's vitamins on the market today contain up to 7 grams of sugar per serving and are stuffed with artificial additives and petroleum-based dyes. Haya took the opposite approach. 0 sugar, 0 gummy junk, just clean nutrition. And the crazy thing, kids actually love them. The taste, the experience, all of it.
Yes, my kids absolutely love Haya. In fact, this morning they had a smoothie with the kids' daily greens and superfoods powder in it. Every single morning they add ask for their vitamins. They both love their probiotics as well as their multivitamins. And our family just really loves Haya. It's so good for the kids. And my husband and I are happy because our kids are actually taking their vitamins.
And here's something every parent needs to hear. If getting your kids to eat vegetables feels like an impossible daily battle, Haya's new Kids Daily Greens and Superfoods is a total game changer. It's literally what Lexi was just talking about. It's basically chocolate milk, but it's also stuffed with veggies. It's a greens powder that's packed with 55 plus whole food sourced ingredients. Just mix 1 scoop with milk or any non-dairy beverage and watch them enjoy something that's secretly fueling their growing bodies.
We've worked out a special deal with Haya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off. Yes, that's 50% off on your first order. To claim this deal, you must go to hayahealth.com/FFG. This deal is not available on their regular website. Go to HIYAHEALTH.com/FFG and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. All right, it is time to don our relics and step through the Quicksilver to explore key insights, character analysis, lore, foreshadowing, theories, and so much more. Who is ready for the Evenlight Ball? Me! Remember, this is not an event that Saeris can skip, no matter how badly she wants to. The ruler of the Blood Court presides over the festivities, drinking, dancing, sex. And according to Tal, the party cannot begin without her official say-so. So if Saeris doesn't show up, she will openly neglect her position as queen and rub it in everybody's faces what she really thinks of Saeris Roth and the Blood Court. And it is even more important that she attends since the Evenlight Ball has 2 other important things on the agenda. Tonight is also the selection evening for picking a new Lord of Midnight. There must always be 5! And Tal needs to publicly disavow Saeris so no one will believe he is pulling the queen's strings. At least that is the reasoning he gives, but way more on that later.
It's a party, so we gotta have a fit watch. Saeris is wearing a black gown that she literally had to be stitched into. This reminds me of those wedding dresses where you have to have a special crochet hook to get them on and off. And God forbid you lose it and don't have it on your wedding night. You wouldn't know anything about that, Lexi, right?
Getting that damn wedding dress off was like the hardest thing ever.
I still don't understand how you all did it.
Don't worry about it.
This dress Saeris is wearing is black as sin and murder, and it's trimmed with, do you know what, Lexi?
Velvet!
Velvet! You've ruined the velvet, Kingfisher. Don't worry, he does love to mar a pretty thing. Saeris has on long silk gloves matching her dress, which is a cinched corset top that dips devastatingly low, then billows into a poofy ball fashionable traditional gown. To be honest, I'm not a dress person, but make this a jumpsuit and this is everything I've ever wanted to wear ever. But staring into the mirror, it's clear that it's not Saeris. She looks stunning, but she views this kind of décolletage as unnecessary and way too much. And it's only adding to the nerves that she's already experiencing. This is going to be only the 2nd time she has sat before her own court. And it's going to be when she's publicly disavowed and she has to pick a new member of the Lord of Midnight and also watch the members of her court drink blood and fuck all evening. Remember, Saeris wants to believe in the people of the Blood Court and that they can be redeemed. It's one of the reasons she vetoed the very popular idea to lay waste to the Blood Court upon her reign. It's nights like tonight that I think really highlight how far they are from that redeemability, especially when one of their own questions for the queen before the ball was asking if she wants to drink the blood of newborn babes for that to be filled in their cups tonight. Not a good look, Blood Court. So Kingfisher, loving mate that he is, has an idea. Loosen Saeris up a little bit. And it also selfishly checks off a box for him as well. He can sense her nerves and does not want her going into the Hall of Tears all stressed out and, feeling all tense. But also, with him wringing a finger bang orgasm out of her, she's gonna smell all like Kingfisher. Thus, making sure they all know, and I mean really, really know, in case they hadn't figured it out yet, that she is his. I am going to quote our girl Bryce Quinlan for 1 second. This is pure alpha hole behavior, and you know what? I'm not mad about it.
And here, Saeris gets another tattoo during that orgasm. Quote, "Don't say I never give you flowers, Osha." It is a beautiful bouquet of roses covering the tops of her thighs. Just hot, Fisher. Hot.
A little peek behind the scenes. If you did not know, in our lead up to the coverage of Brimstone, Lexi and I had a bet that we at Fantasy Fangirls are well known for, and that is the sex bet. The bet was how many sex scenes would there be in Brimstone, and the winner would get to choose the other sister's shade of color for our next hair vivid appointment. I said 2 or less sex scenes. And before you're like, Nicole, what? You're the romantic. I was not expecting cottage dream sex to be on the table while they were apart. I'm sorry. Lexi said 4 or more, and our hairstylist said 3 on the dot. Up until this point, there have only been 3 sex scenes, and I was all too happy to let Whitley have the win. She did great with my hair after Onyx Storm. And then this scene came out, and the entire time I was like, don't come. I'm
just cheering them on like, come on, Saeris, go.
But then Taladaeus interrupted them, and I was like, yes! And then it didn't stop these two. So Lexi, congratulations. By the time this episode comes out, I will have the new hair that you have picked for me. But at the time of recording this, our hair appointment is like 3 days away. So this is the before picture. Be kind as you pick out my birthday hair, please. And congratulations or whatever to Kingfisher and Saeris for a 3-minute orgasm.
The Hall of Tears has been completely transformed. The benches are gone and replaced with long tables off to the sides, with the center of the hall open for dancing. The scent of blood in the air is so strong because when every glass of wine is poured, the enthralled fae pouring it drips a few drops of blood into that wine as well. By the end of the night, these high bloods with these laced drinks will be so drunk from the wine and feral from the blood. And with the long evening ahead, it's time to jump right into the agenda, starting with the disavowment, before, everyone is too drunk to remember that it happened.
Let's get on with the proceedings, shall we? Taladaeus takes the stage, a natural-born player, if you will. I love these parallels between him and his dramatics here, and Zovina and her affinity to make everything just a level 10, if not 10 plus. But unlike Zovina, Tal hates this kind of spotlight. This is more of a necessary evil, if you will. He grabs hold of a silver ice bucket and hands it off to Saeris. How a vampire can hold silver and be totally fine? Not important! Zareth, what are you doing, my guy? And Taladaeus' proclamation commences. The disavowment, or rescinding of the blood, is fairly straightforward. You speak it into existence, call back your blood, revoke your lineage and patronage, and then clap your hands together. Upon the clap, there is a thunder wave type shock, and then the person you just disavowed vomits up all the blood they've drank from their maker. Luckily, Saeris has not drinking that much from Taladaeus, so her vomiting was pretty minimal. Thank God.
But there's important context here that Tal did not tell Saeris.
Shocking!
Malcolm set the precedent that disavowment is public shaming. The only times this disavowment ceremony has been performed before was when Malcolm's vampires displeased him, and disavowing them was the worst thing that could be done to his children, quote unquote. It made them an outcast, and it warned others who watched that if they stepped out of line, they'd be next. Often these disavowed vampires were officially shunned too, like Foley. Now remember, there is a difference between disavowment, which is the breaking of the bond between the vampire and its maker, and then there is shunning a vampire, which is taking their fangs out and literally forcing them to leave Atreus. So while it makes absolute sense for Tal to do this for the political strategy of Saeris not possibly being controlled by him and therefore the rest of the Lords of Midnight being pissed off about it, it certainly does not make sense in any other way because of what Malcolm conditioned everyone to believe about a disavowed vampire, about the ceremony. Here, Tal is actually shaming the queen in front of the entire court, showing that she is not worthy to be among them, which naturally makes Fisher go, what the fuck is Tal doing? This is so unlike Tal that Fisher did not think he would actually make Saeris go through with this.
But here is what the fuck Tal is doing. As we know, in a relationship with your maker, you can sense them. Tal is about to go batshit off the walls a little bit, and he doesn't want Saeris knowing what he's up to. nor does he want her to fall to the same fate. This is the most important part. If she is disavowed, that means she will not be affected by the blood cure, poisoning, blood curse, what is going to happen to all of these vampires. We will see many other thralls who are going to be walking around the cogs. Their vampire decided to take the cure and go back to being fae. / we'll also see some of them dead on the streets if their maker decided to not take the cure. So based off of this, I'm taking that any thrallment, their fate is dependent on what their maker chooses. But I'll admit, I'm a little confused.
I'm confused too with how exactly it works for all the thralled after their makers either turn fae or die. But I think the main takeaway here, the main reason that this is so urgent for Tal to do now, why Fisher's noticing he's anxious about getting this over with as soon as possible before all the poison kicks in that everybody's drinking, is to literally sever his bond with Saeris ahead of what he's going to do, to keep her protected, to keep her from the same fate that he has accepted for himself, which he ever so slightly hints at with his speech. May she be the last monarch this court sees. And then he also goes, may she usher in a new era and a new beginning for the people of Saeris. Yes, indeed, that is about to happen.
Beginning is quite the choice of words there. It's ending for most of them. Let's move on to the choosing of the 5th Lord of Midnight. After Fisher offed Aerith at Saeris' coronation, there's been a vacancy in the Lords of Midnight. And there must always be 5! And the 5 gemmed rings must always be worn at the same time by each individual Lord of Midnight.
There's got to be more with the power of these 5 rings, right? There's way too much foreshadowing with how Malcolm imbued power in each of these rings, and how there must always be 5 Lords of Midnight, 5 lords to wear these 5 rings. It feels very all parts to a whole, and that they each contribute power to make it complete, especially with all the Hazrax foreshadowing too that we'll get to later.
I'll be really curious, because with Zovina dead, that means that there's another vacancy, if even that technically still matters.
With Savina's ring, I wonder if Tal is holding on to it. So I think that all of these rings are still around and all 5 of them will come into play, but it doesn't necessarily matter who is wearing them. It's just like the power needs to be used.
All of this to say, the Lords of Midnight and their roles and what they are the keeper of is chosen during this ceremony. So currently we have Zavina, who is the keeper of missives, unless you're reading halfway through the book and then she's the keeper of something else, but we're keeping with the keeper of missives. The Hazrax is the keeper of silence, Algat is the keeper of records, and Taladeus is the keeper of secrets. As far as we can glean from these petitions we're about to go through, the keeper of blank is chosen based off whatever the monarch believes is needed in Saeris. But friends, I am very sorry. I am going to plead your forgiveness here because I have failed as my role of keeper of the gem watches on this podcast.
You all are DMs.
So to rectify my error on episode 1, allow me to go through all the rings of the Lords of Midnight and their meanings, starting with Taladeus, who has a warm citrine stone. The citrine stone symbolizes joy, abundance, and personal power. Feels very appropriate for Taladeus, especially the personal power given how much he's kept his own mind. Next is Zavina, with a thick gold band and a purple stone, which I'm assuming is amethyst, which is the stone of royalty. Absolutely checks for Savina, who is always trying to get that crown. Algat's ring we have not actually seen yet, so I'm very curious what that means. Hazrax, however, wears a gold band with a large blood red ruby. Rubies are the strongest representation of human blood. Quite ironic, considering that the Hazrax is the only Lord of Midnight who is not a vampire. But rubies also represent intense passion and protection, which protection definitely sounds like the Hazrax, considering how it watches over Saeris. And lastly, the unoccupied ring, or Aerith's / soon-to-be Foley's, is a large amber jewel, which symbolizes warmth, healing, and good luck. But I am assuming for Aerith, it was more to represent that rich orange hue of Brimstone. And then, of course, warmth and healing really feels apt for Foley. And that, friends, is Gem Watch, a very belated Gem Watch. So let the presentation commence.
First up is Kevin Dawlish, a massive male standing over 7.5 feet tall. Kevin proposes to be the keeper of warfare, which would be a good fit for him. Because you see, when he was alive, before becoming vampire, he had been a brave, courageous, and funny Fae warrior. He was trained by Kingfisher himself. They were friends. He was part of Kingfisher's army. But fuck! This is the moment that Fisher realizes how horribly wrong he has been about previous battles with Malcolm. Because all these centuries, Fisher has thought and found relief in the fact that the dead on the battlefields passed peacefully into the beyond. Except, it turns out that Malcolm scavenged the battlefields and forced the best fighters to become vampires. He turned them against their will to be part of his vampire horde, including Kevin here. After being turned by Malcolm, Kevin used the skills that he was taught as a Fae warrior to train Malcolm's captains in the art of siege warfare against the Fae he once fought with and swore to protect. He has also commanded several battalions of feeders in successful campaigns against the Fae. Oof. What a blow. All the while, as Kevin is listing his vampire achievements, he is staring Fisher down. Fisher left him to this fate. What did he expect Malcolm to do? Poor Fisher and this realization. It's the last thing he would ever have wanted for his warriors. And he feels really blindsided by underestimating Malcolm to literally turn his own warriors against him. I don't think we find out what happens to Kevin after the aftermath of taking down the Blood Court. I could see him taking the cure and coming back to the good guy's side. Hopefully we see this with other vampires who had been Fae warriors as well. Or I could see him accepting his death as a vampire, unable to go back to being Fae after what he's been forced to do against his people. Unfortunately, I think that's probably the more likely scenario.
Oh, I hope it's option one, because I just feel like, you know how Tal and Iseabail later says, I finally get to side with the good side, or I finally get to fight for the good side? I just feel like Kevin could really do some healing from that. It sounds really nice.
I think there is a reason that so few people went to Cahlish after this, and that included Zavina. If they brought Zavina on their crew, I would imagine that they would take Kevin as well as hey, sorry, buddy. You're
so
coming out with us now.
Oh, God. Next up, behind door number 2, is someone who we definitely don't think turned back into a Fae, and that is Evenlight. Evenlight is a well-known member of the Blood Court, and in life was an alchemist, the remnants of which still mark her skin centuries later. Her runes and shield now are an ash gray. She has been here since the very beginning, when the vampires first spilled righteous blood in service to Malcolm. Now, pause. We know that Malcolm had a female alchemist on his side when he first rose to power, and we know that Evenlight is old, as Fisher calls out the fact that the name Evenlight is so old and out of style, it most likely hasn't been spoken in centuries. Now, the way that Malcolm talked last book, it did sound like his alchemist was dead. But technically, Evenlight is a vampire, so technically she is dead, or at least it sounds like her alchemist powers are dormant within her. So could she technically be his alchemist?
I think that would be interesting. I am confused about how in life she was an alchemist, because if you turn fully vampire, I am guessing you lose those powers. But then the Fae don't lose their powers when they become vampire, at least that we've seen with Tal. It becomes dark and twisted magic. Like, it doesn't come from the same living life magic, if that makes any sense.
Yes, I could see maybe alchemist power needs to thrive on the living. Like, it needs life magic within itself. I don't know. That feels like a pretty popular fantasy-ism.
Yes. So Evenlight is definitely not still an alchemist. And I don't know, the way that Malcolm said that the alchemist was disappointing, my bones are telling me there's a different story there.
Okay, I can get behind that. Do you think that we're going to get her different story? Or do you think it's just like, all right, Evenlight, you got a backstory, but I don't think we're meant to know it.
I think she is dead, and we're not going to get any more backstory on
I think
her.
you are extremely right. All of this to say, Evenlight is not only the architect behind Amontreath, but also she engineered the siege machines and sewer systems and all of the infrastructure and planning that was required into the cogs.
So I have a crack theory. Maybe she contracted with Madra, too, to design the wards in Zelvarin. We know from Carrion's bonus chapter that it was about 300 years ago that Madra segregated Zelvarin, and it was going to be quite the engineering task getting these walls up.
I love your brain. I think that's so interesting. Sure. Honestly, all of this to say, go Evenlight, because this sounds very difficult. And Malcolm was very much pleased with the weapons that she designed that were built of iron and designed to inflict unimaginable pain among the Fae. This is where she does not get a gold star. Which all of this brings us to why she's standing in front of Saeris now. And Evenlight wishes to be the keeper of pain, wanting to renew her efforts in designing equipment and weapons to torture the Fae. She believes that the Blood Court's most glorious purpose is to have complete domination over the other courts and total supremacy over the Fae, including mandatory blood tithes, livestock breeding farms, as well as feeding farms. Evenlight, know your fucking audience, girl. I love Saeris' reaction to this, which is to be silent for so long, just staring down the vampire wannabe lord, that finally Evenlight starts to cower. As someone who stresses over pauses in conversation, I applaud this courage and sheer will that took Saeris. Well done.
Evenlight is not deterred, though. If Saeris does not agree with this vampire mission, maybe she doesn't have the stomach to rule it. Okay, maybe that was not the best thing to say, because as Saeris just keeps staring at her, Evenlight's like, I didn't mean to offend you. And that is when Saeris is like, yeah, that mission, Malcolm was waging a war he could not win and depleting Sanus Roth's resources. They need to focus on rebuilding this court, and it sure as hell will not be with any feeding farms.
Where there is drama, even a lick of it, there is always Zavina, who is livid at the prospect that their queen didn't think about who they would be drinking from to sustain their vampire-y selves. To be honest, I think this is a fair point. I'm not agreeing with Zavina. I'm just saying a realm has to eat. And I don't blame her for being worried about it, even if it is just for show.
I'm right there with
Okay, thank God.
This is an unfortunate fact about vampires that Saeris seems to be ignoring because it is unpleasant. And absolutely, we are right there. This is very unpleasant. This is not a very good thing whatsoever. But it doesn't seem like Saeris has an alternative solution, as Zavina will point out, being like, yeah, that's literally what I just said. We do need to feed. And yes.
This is literally like someone in warfare. Like, we've commended Game of Thrones for being very on it when it comes to resources and the politics around resources when it comes to warfare. And this is like being in Game of Thrones and them being like, the sheep, it doesn't matter for the dragons. It doesn't matter. That would matter. It matters. And Zavina is hopping on this only because she has an opportunity to showcase Saeris' incompetence. And perhaps her own competence. Like I said, she has an amethyst stone that's not just for show. I mean, she's not subtle. She's literally wearing a laurel wreath crown on her head. Homegirl is looking at this as an opportunity to vie for the throne.
Too bad it didn't work, because Saeris shuts Zavina down in epic fashion, using the magical control she has over Zavina to put her in her place. There are 3 more petitions that Saeris hears, all of which she receives from the would-be keepers while she rests her feet on Zavina's back as a necessary show of power. The 3 petitions include for a keeper of monies, keeper of truths, and keeper of antiquities. Personally, I would have chosen keeper of monies, since Saeris wants to rebuild this court with the goal of safety, security, legitimacy, and food while keeping the moral high ground. Sounds like money would be good for all of that. But that's just my 2 cents.
2 cents. Keeper of monies. Get it? Okay. Saeris, it is time for you to choose. Which of these fabulous choices do you want at your side? None of them! Dun dun dun! A hush falls upon the crowd. All right, let's back up a little. In her post-orgasm haze, before Saeris left her rooms, she stopped to read Edina's journal, which had one line of script on it for the next stage in Edina's game of life. Quote, "Consider a sixth. Only the gold-toothed wolf can't be trusted." Immediately putting two and two together and determined to follow her mother-in-law's words, Saeris pulled aside a low blood at the beginning of the party pre-disavowment and whispered in his ear asking him to go get Foley. Remember, Foley is shined. No one believes he's worthy of breathing the same air as this court, let alone being a High Lord of Midnight. But here is Saeris calling for a rather confused Foley to come forward.
Foley Brimstone is looking all the warrior, here to be of service to his queen. Like Nicole said, Foley is a shunned vampire. Suggesting him and then naming him Lord of Midnight is the biggest insult to the Blood Court, who thrives on tradition and status. He's not even supposed to be in this hall.
Now, you might be asking, Saeris? Girl, didn't he try to kill you when you first met? Why, oh why is he the right choice? It is not a coincidence that in the day's previous events, Foley has started to see a different path for himself. Foley Brimstone was raised to be Hand of the King, a role I definitely think he will still fulfill, but with Carrion. Maybe with both Carrion and Saeris, who knows? Then Belicon took over years ago, and he turned into a vampire, and his life and his goals all lost meaning. But when Saeris started looking to him as a reluctant mentor, we saw quite a shift in Foley. And then Fisher reminded him just last episode that he is a wolf and he is made for so much more than just living in libraries. This moment right here with Saeris is a further embedment of that shift. It's her calling him forward to fight at her side. And this is my favorite part. Should he wish it? Should he deem that now is his time to step out of the shadows?
And he most certainly does. He refused to swear fealty to Malcolm because he did not believe in Malcolm's Sanisroth, but he does believe in Saeris. She has proved that while yes, she might be half vampire, she is on the good guy's side. Not only is she mated to Foley's leader and brother from another mother, she has proven herself in his eyes to be worthy of following. She shows strength, but also mercy, empathy for those who deserve it, and power that she wants to use for the good of the realm instead of twisting it for her own dark gain. She has helped him come out of his own shadows and find purpose and belonging again. Of course he will be honored to swear himself to Saeris Fane. Huzzah! And Saeris keeps him safe from the angry High Bloods by declaring him friend to the crown. And there is still her edict where no one can harm a friend of the crown. Looking ahead a little bit, because all of the High Bloods do immediately cease, throwing things at him and all of that, that means that her power is still working over them. So the poison that they are drinking right now, it has not taken effect yet, and they could potentially attack her.
It's here! It's here! The Evenlight has arrived! A brilliant green glittering wave of light rolls across the night sky from the west at tremendous speed. This light is known as the spirit of the gods, which I want to know what that means. Many press their index finger and middle finger to their forehead in between their brows in reverence to the gods.
This is probably a stretch, but I wonder if any of the feeders we've been with runes on their foreheads had been religious figures in life, where a tattoo on their forehead somehow symbolizes something with the spirit of the gods. However, Aerith had been keeper of Evenlight, and as a religious leader for the undergods, does that mean that Evenlight ties back to Diaxis? Though that would not make sense with how people here, including Foley, are saying the spirit of the gods are with us. Foley doesn't worship the undergods, so I'm assuming that this reference to spirit of the gods is general gods, not necessarily the undergods.
I'm agreeing with you on that front. Absolutely. I also wonder if the keeper of Evenlight and Aerith being a religious zealot for the undergods are two separate buckets that he lived in. I love the idea of them crossing over somehow. I don't think they did, just because I'm not seeing any through line. As that Evenlight fills up the sky, the Evenlight torches in the hall flare brighter. The fires that burn strengthen and roar violently in the hearths and all throughout the Black Palace. The sources of Evenlight are being powered up in the arrival of the Evenlight across the sky. Thank God that shit can't burn, or else they'd all be like, I'm melting!
You know we can't bring up the Evenlight holiday without wondering how this connects to Zelvarin, because we know with certainty that the same brilliant green light does not move across the sky in Zelvarin. According to Fisher, Evenlight is not even supposed to be in Zelvarin, except he spots it while he's there. That is when he's like, what is this doing here? Obviously, Madra still celebrates with her big speech in Zelvarin's sad excuse for a festival. I am 1000% convinced that Madra uses the Evenlight holiday to help siphon more power and more magic. Considering she has ensured the gods are forgotten in Zelvarin, if this light they're witnessing in Yuvelia is indeed the gods' spirits showing themselves, for lack of a better word. However, to kind of counter that, I will say I don't see how the gods could be illuminating magic or bringing more magic about in Zelvarin for Madra to siphon. But then, with how the Evenlight's presence makes the existing Evenlight power up more, I wonder if Madra is using Evenlight in Zelvarin as would it be like a conduit? Evenlight bolsters magic, draws magic to it, and then there's a secondary element with all of Zelvarin being a big circular sigil that powers magic.
Well, going back to, it feels like a long time ago, theory that Madra is Nichenai, goddess of masks.
Oh.
So she is an element of a god. I'm slowly but surely backing out of that theory. But if it is still on the table, that could also be part of it. If it is the spirit of the gods, she could literally be siphoning down any element of the gods as a god in herself, or even as a demigod or a half god, or so. I'm throwing shit at the wall now.
What I'm saying is, I do think that the Evenlight Festival is celebrated in Zelvarin for her to have more access to magic, because there is something about that holiday that bolsters up the magic. And I do think that the reason that Evenlight exists in Zelvarin is to serve as some kind of conduit for that.
I love it. I love it a lot. With the spirit of the gods surrounding the Hall of Tears, dancing commences, and we get a short but very sweet conversation between Saeris and Fisher. Since book 1, Fisher has been leaving out dresses for Saeris for her to wear, and all of them have gone ignored. Not as a slight to Fisher, at least not anymore as a slight to Fisher, but instead because they leave a sour taste in Saeris' mouth. She grew up surrounded by one goal: survive, and ideally keep Hayden alive as well. Wearing pretty things was not on the survival to-do list, and thus she's been relying on pants and tunics as a matter of literally life and death. She always saw dresses as domestication, slowing down, sitting there and looking pretty because you can't do much else in something floofy. And she finally brings this point of contention to Fisher, telling him that when he leaves out dresses, it makes her feel like she's supposed to just sit there, look pretty, and let him take care of business. Which this admission causes Fisher to literally halt in the middle of the dance floor, because that couldn't be further from what he wants for her. He knows Saeris is not meant to be stifled or domesticated, and he would never want that for his love. Instead, the dresses are options and an opportunity to put away the teeth she bears at the world and instead soften. Not because she should, but because she doesn't have to lose her strength when she softens, when she allows herself to be many different things. I want to swap out dresses for another softening that, I don't know about you all, but I know for myself it can feel foreign to reach for. Believe it or not, I am not an overly emotional wear your hearts on your sleeves or the silhouette of your dresses kind of a person. I've relied on hardening to the outside world, and that can result in being harder for me to feel things. Because when I do, it feels so deep, and that softness feels like a weakness. And as a result, I never wanted other people to see that. It hasn't even been until recent years that I've put away those figurative barred teeth to the world and opened up parts of myself to others. Because, like Fisher says, I know they've got me. But more so because I know it doesn't make me any less strong to feel deeply. So this is our reminder as a collective. We don't have to be one thing. We are capable of many, but that doesn't make one version of us less than. We are allowed to be all ourselves, softened and all.
Well, I feel really bad with doing this transition, but with that beautiful moment over, a cry for help pierces the air. High bloods around the hall are suddenly throwing up thick streams of black blood. Blood also runs from their eyes, their noses, their ears. Oh no, Vecna got them! Just kidding. Vampires are collapsing on the floor, convulsing, eyes rolling back into their heads. Are we sure this is not Vecna, everybody? Crying for help. What started as an evening of celebration has turned into pure chaos. And it is not Fisher this time. He's been on his best behavior for these festivities. This was so much fun to read for the first time. I was just on the edge of my seat freaking out, especially when Tal is standing over everybody here being like, your judgment has come for you at last. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on?
I remember being like, oh my God, Taladeus is evil. I win. I didn't. But having taken matters into his own hands, Taladeus has been slowly poisoning the entire blood court all evening. The blood-laced wine the High Bloods have been drinking all night has been the catalyst to a dark spell. More on this in a moment. But throughout the evening, it's also been noted that the thralls who've been giving blood have been filling their cups with a smaller amount than usual, because this poisoning had to happen deep into the night when everyone was way too far into their own cups to know up from down and try to stop Taladeus, which is why when Tal takes his dose in a few minutes, it takes effect immediately because he had more of the poisoned blood in his glass than the others. Walking around the room, the thralls have vials that, if taken, will stop this painful death. But it will cause a transformation to be painful instead. This transformation will cause the vampires to be reborn back into their fae bodies, or whatever race they were before they turned. But it will be at the cost of facing the horrors of what they've become and allowed themselves to become over the last years.
Tal has lived among these vampires for more than 1,000 years and sincerely does not believe that the vampires are going to change or find their moral compass, as Saeris has been hoping happens. He wasn't going to put this responsibility of destroying the blood court on Fisher and Saeris' shoulders. They are too good. They have the morality that the vampires lack. They still have their souls, literally. Tal, on the other hand, believes he's too far gone. We talked a lot about this in early episodes, with his struggles about being a vampire and a powerful, highly regarded one at that, though he deeply hates himself and feels ashamed of what he's become. Taking down the blood court is a worthy final act for him. He can save his friends from doing this terrible deed that they already chose not to do, while he already feels himself too far gone for any kind of redemption. He doesn't believe that he even deserves a redemption, and he'll use that to his advantage once and for all. Oh, Tal! I do love how much of his character we get in Brimstone. You and I both had hoped that he would be a bigger player in the sequel, Nicole, and yes, he is. Also, I love seeing his and Foley's two parallel but very different journeys of being vampires. Foley rises up from being shunned and shying away from being a vampire to stay a vampire and rise up as the warrior for good that he vowed to be part of as the Lupo Proelia. Meanwhile, Tal outwardly was a highly respected and feared vampire. He was Malcolm's second, though he hated himself so much and has always inwardly struggled with his identity as a vampire. Now he can take down the whole blood court with him once and for all as a final act of doing something good and, what's more, by his own choice. For 1,000 years, Tal was controlled by Malcolm. Now he is free of his old master and he can finally make his own choices.
Side note, I love the line much earlier in the night about how Tal is wearing a pale gray suit, which holds a distinctly fey air. This foreshadowing is delicious, knowing that he is literally about to turn them all back into fey should they wish it. Oh, it's so good.
There was also a moment earlier when Tal was zoned in on the wall hanging, and Saeris was like, that's odd. That wall hanging is really not that interesting. I don't think anything suspicious was hanging on the wall that he would have been staring at, or maybe it was him needing to avoid Zavina's eye contact in the moment before what was about to go down. Like, what do you think?
I could definitely see it just being foreshadowing for him being nervous, might not be the right word, but anxious to get this moving along, because he had to wait a long time into the night. And I could imagine he is just on like high alert for sure. The magical spell that Iseabail cast was linked to turning anyone who had a connection to Malcolm's blood back into the Fae, should they take the cure vial, or it would kill them. But Taladeus disavowed Saeris and Foley, so the domino effect for the two of them would not take place, since their connection to Tal, aka their connection to Malcolm, was broken. Now, we also know that Malcolm has disavowed other vampires who were outcasts in society. So technically, there are still other vampires who would have been turned, I'm assuming probably killed, because they'd be out not
in the shunned area.
In the shunned. So they're dead.
That's my guess.
That's probably best for plot. Let's talk about this spell that Iseabail cast because, oh boy, she's looking mighty guilty right about now.
Iseabail has been very busy forming a plan. Remember how she said she'd stay in Cahlish instead of go back to Nevercross for now? Well, it's so she can be close to Amatreath for this Evenlight Ball. Because you see, she had Tal bring the Fae thralls to the river earlier and marked them with sigils that made it so when they cut themselves, she, Iseabail, bled through their veins instead. Why is it notable for the vampires to actually drink this Balcadier witch's blood instead of the presumed Fae thrall blood? Because Iseabail's blood is a curse to all vampires, killing them unless they take the antidote that her clan created. However, there is a risk. When the High Bloods are affected by Iseabail's blood, when they start not feeling so good, that also means they are no longer under Saeris' control. Without the Crown Edict that no one is allowed to hurt her or her friends, these vampires could have attacked their new queen at any moment in the window of time where the effects are starting. Vampires aren't feeling so good, but they are still capable. Iseabail knew that Tal would never agree if he knew this risk that endangers Saeris and crew. So the witch kept this part of her blood's effects to herself. This will be the main reason Fisher is so furious with her. She knowingly put his mate in danger.
So I have a quick theory/question, and it's back to my Iseabail as a possible Dianthus theory. We know that Dianthus' blood killed Malcolm. That's what went down with Carrion and Malcolm at the end of book 1. So could this be foreshadowing that Iseabail's blood is Dianthus' blood? Obviously, there is still the blood transference spell and the anecdote that the Balcadier clan created. That is all separate. But it is a mighty suspicious connection to Dianthus, especially given how similar her and Carrion look. There's another mention in the I really like your horn scene that Carrion's hair looks exactly like Iseabail's. But in this scene, it's noted how the blood is only killing vampires who have a connection to Malcolm. Not any vampire. It's only the ones with a connection to Malcolm, which is why when Saeris and Foley were disavowed, they do not get hurt because they do not have that connection to Malcolm. So I'm actually wondering if this is more hints that die in this connection. And because Iseabail never says it is the Balcadier clan's blood that hurts the vampires, she only says that it's her blood. So I think she's keeping more secrets, and I think that she's a Dianthus.
Yeah, sorry, I'm processing all of that. Because I have been under the impression that it is the Balcadier witch clan blood because they're the ones who are instrumental in finding the cure, and there's a lot more about them and the blood curse originating and Malcolm being the OG and all of that kind of stuff than I think that we know about right now. So I guess I was just always in the impression that it could have been any Balcadier witch's blood, and obviously Iseabail was the only one willing to do that.
Well,
so,
she went behind their backs too.
Exactly, yeah. So, okay, I'll noodle on that. Okay.
Noodle away.
But there's more to Iseabail's plan that is very important. These sigils for the blood transfer spell on the Fae thralls were not big or strong enough on their own. And since Iseabail could not risk the High Bloods sensing too much magic on these thralls or seeing larger marks on them that would make them suspicious something's up, she needed to create a larger conduit to channel the blood transfer spell so that this conduit could redirect the energy to the thralls and therefore complete the spell of getting Iseabail's blood into the vampire's drinks. That's the new sigil placed on Tal. It's known as a witch mark. That is the new extensive tattoo on his chest that Fisher noticed earlier. With Tal's witch mark, he served as the conduit for the spell to work, so the Fae thralls could bleed Iseabail's blood instead and poison all the High Bloods. A witch mark is created using borrowed dark magic. It lends power to the one who binds it. If left unchecked, the witch mark steals power and eventually becomes an open gateway that cannot be closed. Where does this gateway lead, you ask? To the realm where all dark magic hails. The demon realm that Orlena will not even speak the name of, More on all that soon. This deadly, extremely complicated witch mark on Tal cannot be undone. Iseabail and his plan was for him to die, and he would take the witch mark's activation with him in death. So it would die out with him and not kill all of our characters. When Tal told Iseabail that he was going to sacrifice himself, and he absolutely did not intend on taking the blood curse cure, she was comfortable putting the witch mark on him, because again, that meant the spell would have and should have died with him before it got too big and too powerful and killed everybody. Iseabail knew it would be impossible to convince the vampire nobles to voluntarily return to their natural born states, be that fae, witch, or something else. So she lied to the matriarchs of the Balcadier clan, telling them that she would convince the vampires to voluntarily take the cure. Though how she managed to convince her clan is still very much a mystery, one that I want to know the answers to because there's got to be more to this story. This is why she returned from Nevercross back to Cahlish earlier as a prioress, a promotion among witches where you aren't even considered for this high status position until you are hundreds and hundreds of years old. And Iseabail is young. She's not even a century old, so becoming prioress was already very suspicious. She was preemptively given this honor as she set out to convince the vampires to take the cure. But instead of trying to convince them, she went against the laws of her people to use dark magic to destroy the blood court. And the witches are sticklers for the law. They're rule makers, not rule breakers, as ALCHEMY knows all too well after being cast out for being a rule breaker. The witches would never, ever sanction this and sacrifice their ethics, their rules, their morals. Ho, Iseabail, you in big trouble. Better hope they do not find out what she did.
Oh,
I bet
hope
they're going to find out.
Do. Yeah. I am giving Iseabail an L for multiple reasons. 1, for lying to everyone, including Tal and Iseabail. 2, for hurting precious Talena's feelings and making her feel like their entire friendship was a sham. And 3, for dabbling into dark magic. Bad. No, ma'am. But I'm making it a lowercase L because seizing the whole opportunity thing and taking down the blood court while she could, I can't entirely blame her given what it's represented for all of these years.
And how once in a millennia of an opportunity this is.
I'm still giving her an L for hurting Talena's feelings at the least.
As long as it's a lowercase.
It's in lower.
She did her best.
I'll go 8-point font. Like I'm going even smaller than 9-point, but it's still an L.
Fair enough.
Fine. We don't know the fate of many of the vampires and which paths they choose. We only know Zovina is a fae, not by choice. Tal and Iseabail cornered her earlier and poured the blood cure down her throat when she wasn't feeling too well. Tal and Iseabail is still protecting the woman he loves, one of the two, wanting to make sure that she has a second chance of life. Fuck you, Zovina. You do not deserve Tal and Iseabail. We also know, or at least Fisher strongly assumes, that Algat has taken the cure and has slithered off somewhere, which I cannot wait for her to come back into the story, especially with Guru in tow.
Ooh, I wonder if Algat's going to spill the beans on Iseabail.
I love that.
Because even though technically she's not supposed to know about Iseabail, I definitely think that she does know. Remember, she was also late to coming to this hall, and it was noticeable.
What if she felt dark magic in the air, and she was like trying to sneak around and be like, what the fuck is going on? This isn't me. Yes. Oh my God, yes. Other than that, we don't know any of the other notable vampires' fates. We really only know the Lords of Midnight. Since the Hazrax was not a vampire to begin with, it's just no different. It's chilling. It's like watching. This is his favorite TV show.
It's believed that only 1 in 10 choosing to live and face the consequences of their years as a vampire. The high bloods down in the cogs are all dead because remember, this blood, the spell impacts all of Malcolm's children, and he created all of the high bloods. There are disoriented fae wandering the streets, not knowing what to do or where to go. These fae had previously been enthralled, but now they're not because their makers are all dead. It's my understanding that only the high bloods who were in attendance at the Evenlight Ball, which was a lot of vampires, had the option for the cure because the cure was being passed around the Hall of Tears and you had to choose to take it before you died. With all of this, we're left with, well, a lot of questions, but the biggest one of all is, what does this mean for the Blood Court, or what used to be the Blood Court? And friends, I really don't know. Over the next few chapters, Saeris will insist on coming back to Amentraeth to figure out what to do next. Meanwhile, others around her remind her that there's not really a court to rule over anymore, not really an Amentraeth to go back to. But I think this is why this big plot twist feels like a loose end. Saeris is planning on coming back to see what this means for the Blood Court. Yet plenty more problems pop up and she does not find her way back to Amentraeth, instead going to Inishtar, then the Wickerwood, then Gate, and finally Diaxis.
So I guess what this all comes down to is how is this going to come back into play? If the vampires, except for Saeris and Foley and anyone else who is disavowed, don't exist anymore, what side will the Fae who have been turned fight on? To be honest, I see them siding with Belicon in revenge against Saeris and her court, Tal and Iseabail included. But
well, hold on, because wouldn't the ones who would want more revenge choose not to take the vial and go into death? And now the ones who are alive, they have to deal with themselves. Chance. Yeah, they had to go through their own therapy. And that's partly why they chose to take the vial, is that they are raising their hand to say, okay, I'm willing to see the light on the other side.
Okay. Maybe. Because I could also see them saying, like, I'm choosing to see the light, redemption, and them feeling remorse, there we go, is too painful and difficult. And they see this Fae, Belicon, who's like, hey, I want to fuck some people up. I want to fuck up the people who stole your life from you, the life you loved as a vampire. I could see that not looking so good. But like you're saying, this all could be the start of a redemption arc that Saeris was hoping for within the Blood Court. Both are very compelling, so I'm actually going to go safe, and I'm going to say a little of option A, a little of column B.
There was a lot of setup in this book for Saeris to indeed be queen of a rebuilt Blood Court. So I guess she will have the opportunity to help these vampires turn back to the living, especially because the feeders still exist, and they might be out of control terrorizing the people who just transitioned back to Fae. Somebody needs to get to Amentraeth and make sure that they're all okay. I guess I can't help but wonder, does any of it with the Blood Court even matter anymore? Yeah. I realize that's a blunt question, but it also feels like a fair one. With so many other priorities in this book and other priorities that Saeris has moving forward into the next book, she did not want to be queen here. Now there's no more vampires, so problem solved?
I will say this. One of the things that I loved of this moment with the Blood Court and the dismantling was Tal and Iseabail getting to do it. If it was Fisher or Saeris, I felt like it would have been way too soon and came out of left field. I'm so glad it was Tal and Iseabail who finally got to take them all down. And what does this mean for our two main characters, primarily Saeris? And I'm not going to lie, all of my theories feel rather bare because I simply feel like so much of what's going to happen in the series is going to ride on book 3. Saeris becoming Queen of Sanisroth was the major cliffhanger of book 1. And to just have it all done without a whole lot of consequence having happened, it feels like the Blood Court it just doesn't feel right. I want to see Saeris rise into her own power and take that journey towards becoming a badass queen. We love a reluctant leader trope. I feel like that really could have been here, and we saw glimpses of that in this book with how she acted towards Bonway and at the very beginning where she really commanded the room
and saw hope.
And still saw hope, but then Tal came in and ended it. Don't get me wrong, I understand his reasoning, and like I said, I'm glad he was the one to do it, but it feels too open.
But yeah, going back to what I was saying, I feel like this is just kind of like okay, now it's over, and now we're moving on to the other things. And it's like, Can we just get a little bit of closure?
Yeah, and I feel like that's where I'm coming from with the book 3 comment. And you've been saying this since episode 1, that it's going to depend on what the vampires turned Fae do now with this freedom. Because if now they come back and fight on our character side, I could see that as a beautiful closure to this.
Yes, I think that all of this going on with the Blood Court, one of two things will happen. One is that it's just kind of over and everybody's moving on and they're off to the other priorities. And it's, that did happen. And in that case, it would feel much more of a plot convenience to get them out of there and for it just to kind of have a nice little bow on it wrapping up. And now we're all back to this. And Saeris will really lean into her Fae identity and with the war braids and all of that.
But then that goes back to what we were saying about Edina's journal with Zareth's chapter last book. It feels like that whole pinnacle of Quicksilver around, rather than Zarth, around her becoming the queen of Sanesroth, it was just for naught in that case. And that makes me bummed.
Yeah, I think it's like it served its purpose and now everybody's kind of moving on. And so what I hope is actually the case as we go into book 3 is that we will see the consequences of all of this dismantling of the Blood Court. Yes, of course, we'll already have the consequences of, Tal being Fae now and Saeris no longer being tied to being Queen of Sanesroth and all of that. But I'm thinking about other big things that made that plot central to the story. And that is what I'm going to be holding out for as we head into book 3.
Like I was saying, like you've been saying since the beginning, a lot of my thoughts on this book about the journal and the Blood Court, they're really going to depend on how it plays out, specifically around consequences in book 3, because it feels like things are happening, but there's not a lot of consequences because of them. Yes, a lot of people died of the Blood Court. They were also vampires who were doing very, very, very bad things. And like you're saying, it was kind of like a convenience.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to seeing how this is explored when it comes to consequences and making our characters have to rise up. And
yes,
that is what I feel like was missing from this plot line. It's more like that autonomy is being taken away from Saeris again because everything's just happening around her, even though she's the queen.
So going back to the consequences here, I think some of the fallout will have big consequences for the series plot. Like I have to wonder about the Horde. There is a whole feeder army that is now nobody is controlling. What about the vampires turned back to Fae? Like you were saying, like are they going to go with our side or are they going to go to Bellacon's side? Will Bellicon or Madra seize this opportunity? I could absolutely see them, specifically Bellicon, taking advantage of this, however that might look like. Will it be a big catalyst for the witches' involvement too, with Alget getting out of there and now she'll be with the witches, and especially with Iseabail and all of that. So I'm very hopeful that we'll see a lot of those things play out that will answer the questions that we have about the consequences of this big dismantling of the Blood Court.
Yes.
Well, with that bloodbath of an Evenlight Ball and the dismantling of the Blood Court and all the thousands of dead vampires, we gotta get the fudge out of here. To Cahlish via the Quicksilver Pool. Heading to Cahlish from Amontreath are Tal, who is unconscious after Foley forced the cure down his protesting throat. Our crew refuses to let him die, no matter how much he wants it, but the cure is not helping him like it has for the other dying vampires. Of course, we have Fisher and Saeris going through. Saeris made sure to grab Edina's book before leaving. Foley, who is not affected at all because Tal told him not to drink the wine, but he thought it was just because Tal told him not to drink the wine. And Zavina, who is now Fae and absolute hot mess. The rest of our crew, including Carrion, Hayden, and Lorth, and all of them, are already at Kahlish.
Fisher, who's already figured out that Iseabail is the witchy mastermind behind it all, is pissed. The pissiest of pissed. Yes, from the beginning, he's been team dismantle the Blood Court. But to have it all done behind his back, he's not a fan of being out of the loop.
He was saying that they had a plan in place, and now Tal has gone and done his own plan. Am I missing something, though? What was their plan with the Blood Court?
I was actually flagging that same thing, because I was like, what plan? What plan?
Because it was not the Brimstone Diaxis plan. He is not even considering that yet. Yeah.
I think it was Plan Redemption. Was it
technically Tal did follow through with that one.
I'm just saying, if Fisher's mate was not queen, he would be cheering Tal and Iseabail on right now. That's all I'm saying. I think this is a little hypocritical of Fisher, considering he is the sacrifice goblin we love and adore. But it's not just because he's out of the loop. He is furious because the way this plan was laid out, it meant that Saeris was in a clear line of danger. After the Highbloods drank the wine and it started to affect them, Saeris' command over them vanished. Any of them could have attacked and killed her. And that's not okay, Iseabail. But I will admit, they're a little weakened and they're a little distracted by, dying. So, Fisher, yes, it's a problem, but I also don't think it's as big of a problem as
it was worth the risk. I'm just going to say it.
Considering that literally one of the reasons Fisher has been able to sleep at night is because Saeris has that command over the people of Sanesroth. He has been clinging to that last line of hope like it's nobody's business.
Like, I will say this. If Saeris had said, I command you all to stop throwing things at Foley here, and they still could, that would have been a big problem because they were not all impacted by the wine that they were drinking yet. So, yes, that could have happened. And it was still so early on in the evening that it didn't.
It was literally only when they started screaming, "Help me! Oh God, please help me!" That is when her command over them started to vanish.
Iseabail cannot be sorry for her actions, though. The witches have waited centuries, millennia, for the opportunity to get inside Amatreath, into the bowels of Amatreath, and rid the vampires, turn them back into the people they're naturally supposed to be. She does feel bad for lying to Tal, but from her perspective, it was the only way to carry out the plan with him, since he never would have agreed to follow through if he knew he was putting his friends in danger with the Highbloods being able to attack. Again, luckily, they didn't, but it was a possibility. Iseabail understands there is a price to pay for all of this, and she's prepared to be punished by Fisher, maybe even be killed for what she's done. And yet, even knowing all of that, it's a price she believes she is born to pay because she feels so strongly about taking down the Blood Court and seizing this once-in-a-millennia opportunity. They've been trying to achieve this since they discovered the cure to the Blood Curse so long ago.
Skirt! We're gonna need to put a pin in this conversation because remember that sigil that Iseabail marked on the thralls with, the ones that weren't quite big or strong enough to hold all the magic. She needed that other canvas, another conduit to channel the spell through. It ended up being a tattoo on our good friend Taladeus. She wove that highly intricate sigil on Taladeus' chest. It's, as Iseabail puts it, borrowed dark magic that when left steals power and will eventually open a gateway that cannot be closed. Since the sigil was so powerful, Iseabail needed to ensure that it would die with whoever she marked it upon. Since Taladeus was planning on dying, the witch decided, hey, this works good, and would have it die dormant with him. But because his friends forced the cure down his throat and he lived, darn, the sigil has been building and growing because of its power, and it's ready to explode. Like, everything in the room is already engulfed in flames, kind of explode. So, let's go save Tal, I guess.
In the bedroom where they've put Tal, there are flames everywhere and his entire body is engulfed in fire. But his skin is not burning yet. This witch mark was not made to ever be undone. To untangle these hundreds of spells woven tightly together would take an entire clan a month. But Iseabail has to at least try to undo all these spells that make up the fatal witch mark.
With the unweaving of the mark not going very well, and Saeris feeling the demons on the other side of the soon-to-be gate wanting to break through, Saeris is pulled unbidden towards Taladeus.
Like Nicole said, she can feel the demons' hunger as they want to get through, as the witch mark causes the fire to continue consuming the room. Hell is here! The gateway is almost open!
Okay, I have a question. Do you think this is how the gateway in Agen opened to Diaxis?
Do you mean in the first place, however many thousands of years ago that would have been?
Yes. Like, was it a borrowed magical mark that exploded and thus made a portal to, as Talena puts it, quote, the realm where all dark magic hails, the demon realm? And of course, she won't even speak its name. God damn it, Talena! But I do wonder if this is another witch who dabbled in dark magic, Algat perhaps, and they are responsible for opening that gate in Agen, especially given that Agen is not too far away from the Balkadir clan lands.
That would be a really good plot twist. Remphis will say that there has always been a city at Agen Gate because there's always been a gate, a portal between this world and another. That feels much more controlled than this kind of witchmark gate to the demon realm, though as we learn about the portal into Diaxis, the original alchemists could never control it like they can with quicksilver pools. Foul creatures would use it as a doorway into this realm, and they would cause chaos and terror. Fun fact, the word demon is never actually used for Diaxis in this book. I did a word search, so I could be missing something, but from my research, that is what I found. The words, foul, the descriptions of foul creatures, beasts, monsters, malevolent forces, that's all used to describe what is in Diaxis. Fisher even says that Diaxis does not have an official name here in Yavelia. He's just always called it Hell. So if Talena refuses to speak the name of this realm, is that her refusing to speak what the realm's inhabitants call it, Diaxis, or is it a realm name of Yavelia and this gateway to the demon realm is a different realm than Diaxis? I am not convinced that this gateway to the demon realm is a gateway to Diaxis whatsoever, because we still don't know where the ancient demons, the actual demons like Joshin, come from. Possibly Diaxis, but that's not confirmed. That's just us speculating. Maybe this is that realm, the literal demon realm, where when it's opened, the super bad demons come through.
Okay, I can get behind that. I can definitely get behind that, especially considering how popular demons are in this series. Yeah, I can, not popular like, oh my God, demons, but popular like.
Exactly. Like I would imagine if the demons were truly coming from Diaxis, there would have been a word choice, a description that would connect the two of them more so than it really has.
Let's keep an eye out for this, but I think you're onto something here.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Now, standing next to the bed, Saeris leans over Tal's body and presses her hands into his chest, and her entire right arm lights up in a white-blue light. And in a single heartbeat, the spell falls apart and the fire goes out. We know that this is when she gets the break rune from the Hazrax, and this is the first time she is using it right here.
It's like she gets the rune, and that's what really gravitates her toward Tal to help him. The Hazrax is literally seeing this all about to go down, and he's like, oh, man, you need to live through this, so here you go.
I think you're exactly right. Yes.
While we're on the topic, let's jump ahead here a little bit, because luckily we have a fairy god Hazrax who will show up in the rain in Cahlish to explain a few things about this new rune Saeris has. It is the first part of the Hazrax two-part gift. The rune is the Hazrax's real name, which is blasphemy to record such a thing on paper. Oh my God, I am so obsessed and so intrigued with the Hazrax and what it truly is and how it'll come into play in the future. Okay, I'm so excited through this part here. The rune itself does not grant Saeris magic in the same way her Quicksilver or Brimstone, etc. runes do. Instead of the rune channeling her inner magic, as I understand it, the Hazrax rune on her is simply the magic within the rune and only the rune. It's not a new ability that Saeris herself has, like how she's an alchemist. She has this power only because of the rune. Also, side note, Saeris, you are extremely rude to this all-powerful, repeatedly trying to help you when she's talking to the Hazrax. All of this that we're talking about right now will have happened the night before. And she's so angry at it. It's like, I don't even want your gift. And it's like, this literally saved all of your lives last night. Yes, the Hazrax definitely has its own agenda that I am on high alert with heading into book 3. But it also keeps throwing Saeris very useful bones. And all she wants to do is make it go away, make it take its gifts back. And I don't know. Come on, Saeris. You know what? I have half a mind to give you an L right now, Saeris.
Oh, dear. Here's what I will say. The Hazrax is like, we need to do small talk in order for us to finally talk. And I'm not going to lie, that would irk my Nurkin a little too. But I agree with you that she's being very, very mean. She's a girl on the move, and the Hazrax is like, I've been alive for so many years.
Okay, so without small talk, yes. But she's just mean otherwise.
I agree.
To the Hazrax with like, I don't want you anywhere near me, go away. And it's like, I'm just trying to help you.
Okay, that is fair. I will accept a lowercase 9-point font.
Anyway, what is this magic of the Hazrax rune it granted Saeris that stopped Tal's witch mark from opening a gateway to the demon realm and killing them all when it was supposed to be impossible? The power to undo/break. Makes sense. The Hazrax granted her this rune, and just in the nick of time, Saeris used the rune's magic to break the witch mark's hundreds of tangled spells that are impossible to undo, unless you have a very powerful undo rune. So Saeris, unlike what anybody else would have ever been able to do, was able to break the spell of the witch mark and save everybody. Plus, this rune does not have to be sealed like her other ones. It's already sealed to her soul. Very interesting wording there, Hazrax. And it will now act as a grounding rod for Saeris' other powers, so her runes won't flame up again. In other words, the Hazrax just gave Saeris very necessary time to figure out how to seal her Brimstone rune before she implodes. And hey, rest of the book, she does not have any runes that flare up, right? It's because of this. Although it is definitely daunting with why the Hazrax gives this rune to Saeris. It calls this gift an apology for what's to come for Saeris. She's got a tough road ahead, and the Hazrax says, quote, "There are those who would consider me partially to blame for that. My mouth is hanging open. What does that mean? Is the Hazrax partly responsible for something that has already been set in motion or something to come? All I know is that Saeris is about to go through some shit in book 3 for an all-powerful ancient being to be like, I'm worried for you. Here's some help. A few other highlights from that exchange with the Hazrax. Number 1, it did not expect what transpired at the Evenlight Ball with Tal going rogue and dismantling the Blood Court. And it says that the Witch's Gambit has rather ruined things for me. What does that mean? What was your greater purpose, Hazrax? Why have you been watching Malcolm all these years? Why is it so important to watch the crown of the Blood Court? What has been ruined?
The Hazrax is the ultimate good. I am sticking my fork in it. I believe, that's not the saying. I am believing with my full chest that the Hazrax has been watching the Blood Court all these years as an opportunity to do this is where I keep going back to the fact that what if the Hazrax is a god? What if the Hazrax is a god walking around in not so human skin? But this right here, I feel like the Hazrax has always had ulterior motives for this reason.
But what are they? Is
that
it
is a
connected
great
to
question.
the blood curse, or is it some kind of like gigantic experiment? Oh my god, I really do think that he is tied to the blood curse.
I want to also say blood curse tie because that just makes sense as to why it would have gone to the blood court. What if it was to do with the rot?
That too,
It's
because
been
it could be waiting for the rot for a very, very long time. But again, we have no idea how that would connect to the blood court specifically. Anyway, number 2 that we learned from the Hazrax is Saeris is only the 3rd person the Hazrax has broken its silence for in more than 1,000 years. Who do you think the other 2 are? Obviously, Malcolm would be one. Belicon? A god?
Definitely Malcolm. I don't think Belicon. This is where I'm going.
That's
back
actually
to
a good point, yeah.
I don't think it would be Belicon. I could see a god.
Anyway, just something I thought I'd throw out there.
Yeah.
And lastly, number 3, the Hazrax also gives Saeris its Lord of Midnight ring. And it says to give it to Foley because, quote, he will need it. Oh my gosh! Also, this is the second half of the Hazrax gift for Saeris. It says that it has a 2-part gift for her. Part 1 was the rune with the magic to undo and break. The part 2 is its Lord of Midnight ring. What in the world is our crew going to be up against that makes it be like, you really need this? I wonder if Foley is going to use the ring's power against Madra, or if it is somehow tied to the triumvirate for our characters to then be able to use it against her, or maybe it's specific to vampire magic. I have no idea. And actually, there is one more thing for me to bring up here too. Okay, I promise this is the last one. Because it's back to me pulling my hair out about what in the world the Hazrax is. It says it will not tell Saeris what it is because she is so close to piecing it together, she's almost figured it out.
Has she?
I was just going to say, I am in Saeris' POV, and I have absolutely no idea. I do think that it is godlike, but it is not an actual god, specifically one that we do not know, and moment of appreciation for how many people agree with me on that.
Okay. With people finally taking a break from bursting into flames, vomiting blood and turning into fae and giving ominous gifts, it is finally time for a moment of reflection, especially for Saeris and Fisher. Because there's a cure, an easily accessible cure to being a vampire now. And Saeris, who is half vampire, could easily take it. But it's not as simple as her being eradicated from vampireness and thus taking over as a full fae. At least they don't think that for certain, since the curse seemed like most of the High Bloods were actually reverted back to their original form. And her original form is human.
Well, that is only Saeris' fear. She doesn't know if she would revert back to being a human, but even the possibility that it could makes her nervous.
Exactly.
So the question for you is, do you think that she would, or would she turn fae?
I think that she would actually turn back to human, which is one of the reasons why Edina was like, don't take it. Because she has a different outcome. So if Saeris took the cure, she might be going back to having her human reflexes, her human scent, and more specifically, her human lifespan. Meaning she would grow old and die all while Fisher stays young. But as he puts it, he would go all Romeo and Juliet on himself and leave when she leaves, if she took the antidote. But thank goodness she does hold off, because Edina in her next passage says, quote, "Do not undo Sareth's work. You are as you are for a reason. Do not drink from the vial. Do not let your new lord drink. The time will come, but not yet."
As I read during this whole part, I was confused because the point of Saeris being protected from Zara's siblings and being severed from the tapestry of fate, that was the whole thing at the end of Quicksilver, is that she is something completely new, half fae, half vampire. She has to be this something completely new to stay protected with the whole setup that she has with Zareth. So yes, she is what she is for a reason. And I'm reading all this and it's like, has Saeris forgotten all of that? The whole thing with Zareth? I assumed that was the much bigger reason she is the way that she is.
I think it could have been very helpful to us as readers for a one-liner mention of that.
Yeah.
Even if it was Saeris remembering, oh my God, that's right. This is the whole reason why I can't be seen by the other gods. And yeah, I think one line of that, because honestly, I forgot until you just said that.
Yeah.
Which I'm a deep diver. That's not very good.
I'm trying to put myself in Saeris' shoes, and it's like, I guess it would be the allure of not being a vampire is that great that she could have just forgotten. That is my headcanon here.
Sure, I can hop on that because like she'd also be able to walk out in the sunlight again. She'd be able to sleep.
Not be vampire, and she doesn't like it. Yeah.
There's a lot of pluses to that side of things. So I take this to mean that eventually we are going to find a way that will turn Saeris into a full fae, and that's when she's going to get the green light from Edina to take a substance. I don't even think it's going to be the same one. And then she'll be able to live a long life with her mate, and both of them die when the time has come, rather than them both dying like Fisher is inferring here. While I'm on that front about Fisher, Romeo, and Julietting themselves, this conversation feels very un-Fisher to me. He's been adamant that the half vampire side of her, it just is. Like he was talking to Foley about it. He's not really given any indication that he's open to her ridding herself from the vampire-ness, especially if it means that they'd have less time together. And given how much emphasis there was on him being very selfish and being very self-sacrificial, him with no real putting up of a fight to just lose out on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years with his mate, it just doesn't sit right with the Fisher I know.
I see what you're saying there. I initially read it as him being a very supportive partner. If Saeris wants to take it, she has his full support no matter what happens. But what you're saying here, and as I'm rereading, I agree that he is coercing the conversation for her to turn fae, even prompting her with, why does she not think that this is good news? I'm here being like, you both have forgotten Zara's reasoning. But I agree with you there, and I'm, for myself, for how much I love Fisher, I'm going to lead toward the intention of him asking these questions to help her share her feelings. Who's ready for an exciting reveal with Carrion? After asking Saeris to help him verify whether he's crazy or not, he brings her to his room.
Quick side note about Carrion coming here to ask for her help. Saeris recalls a time when, in Zelvarin, he requested her to act as a distraction while he steals a bolt of fabric. Well, in Carrion's bonus chapter, before he and Tem interact, we see him in a business meeting over a bolt of fabric.
And they were in the hub too, which is exactly where he and Saeris went for their fabric. So I just thought that was such a fun little connection.
Looks like he's always been in the fabric business back in Zelvarin.
Wow, Carrion certainly has made this gigantic room his space. There are lots of books in here. As Carrion notes, he is researching Yevelian stuff, court stuff. Aw, Carrion, he doesn't want anyone to know he's looking into all of this. He's still grappling with what being the ruler of Evelia would even look like, and he doesn't want to draw attention to his curiosity or make a big deal out of it. Because it is a big deal. He's just not ready for that attention and pressure, though. Okay, everybody? Okay? But more importantly, in Carrion's room, at least right now, there is an extraordinary amount of potted plants. We knew that he liked plants from Quicksilver with his potted plant during the battle, but this is a whole other level with his room completely filled with plants.
And as Carrion speaks, they begin to blossom with teeny tiny little white flowers right before Saeris' eyes. New shoots form, branches from those shoots, and then flowers on flowers on flowers. And the kicker, yesterday, these plants were mere seeds. They're not seeds anymore. In fact, these plants are not even supposed to flip and flower. But every 10 years, these plants are supposed to release spores. Not flowers. Time for a Plant Watch Spore edition. A spore is a cell that certain fungi, plants like mosses and ferns, and bacteria produce. Typically, it is a one-celled reproductive unit that is capable of developing into a new individual without sexual fertilization. It would not be carrion if the word sexual fertilization weren't used in this Plant Watch definition. So all in all, no, these tiny white flowers are not spores.
Which leaves us with the question, what the fuck does this mean?
I just told you what spores mean.
That's not what I was meaning, Nicole. But thank you very much for your plant watch.
You're welcome.
It's been actually very helpful for my book. I just highlight, I put like something like plant or dried herb or something, and then I highlight and I'm like, Nicole, help! Anyway,
I love it.
Are these blooming white flowers part of Carrion's magic? These plants responding to his voice certainly make it seem that way. And back in Cahlish during the feeder attack with Archer, when Cahlion hit his head at a courtyard wall, the vine suddenly bloomed 1,000 tiny white flowers. While I do absolutely believe this is an indication of Carrion's magic manifesting, I can't help but wonder if this also has to do with the Yuvelian terrain life recognizing him as its rightful ruler. I looked into the meaning of tiny white flowers, and while I couldn't find anything specific for tiny white flowers mean purity and new beginnings. Carrion is not exactly the symbol of innocence. However, I do find this connection to new beginnings intriguing. But let's shift back to this plant magic being Carrion's magic. First of all, I want to point out that Fisher has mentioned he thinks Carrion might have fire magic, though I personally haven't seen anything that hints at that, so I'm going to have to trust Fisher on his word, but also trust myself with what I am seeing as a reader before my very eyes here. We also know that the Dianthus Fae were particularly powerful, so it makes sense that Carrion has magical powers we just haven't known about yet. So is Carrion a plant wielder or an earth wielder? And this is his magic manifesting with these tiny white flowers blooming on plants that shouldn't bloom tiny white flowers. Fun fact, in the Empyrean series, this signet is called Aguarian. I could absolutely see the story unfold where Carrion can literally use his magic to help restore the terrain and plant life after the devastation of the rot spreading across his realm. That would be so poetic and beautiful, so I'm sticking with that as my theory. I will also say I think that this plant magic is only the beginning of what we will see with Carrion coming into his own powers. And I just can't wait!
Danya and 15,000 Fae warriors show up at Kahlish with some very, very bad news. A couple of days ago, some warriors noticed that the rot has spread to the northwestern side of the Omnimaran Mountains. The slope is now streaked with black veins and it's moving fast, like way faster than before. The rot has formed channels in the snow, making its way down the mountain in a flippin' day. Danya and the warriors tried to scorch the ground ahead of time to halt its progress, but it didn't work and it made it to their makeshift camp. When Lorith showed up, they tried to come back through the shadowgate and tell others what's been happening, but the gate was closed. So all 15,000 warriors, I'm guessing the 10,000 from Irin, minus the ones that died, and another X amount from elsewhere as they've been collecting people, by going and warning everyone else throughout the land, made a trek to Kahlish to warn everyone within Kahlish. And on the journey, they lost another 23 warriors to the rot. With how fast this rot is moving, it will reach Kahlish in 12 to 16 hours max. So we also get some numbers updates. It's been a few days. The total known dead was 1,976. Now it is 4,769, a difference of 2,793 in a matter of days. Total known infected is now unknown. So total unknown infected. Oh dear, that's bad. And the previous estimated infected landmass was 8,162 hectares, which was a little smaller than San Francisco. Now it is 289 leagues. Oh dear. Remember, a hectare is 0.01 square kilometers or 0.004 square miles. A square league, which I'm assuming it's a square league given that's how we've been logging mass, is 12 square miles or 31 square kilometers. That's quite a jump. So 289 square leagues is 8,921 square kilometers or 3,444.5 square miles. Previously, like I mentioned, the infected landmass was about the size of San Francisco. Now it is the size of Puerto Rico.
As you can imagine, when people are in a pickle, tensions rise. Danya wants to kill all the fire sprites to use the brimstone for the good of getting rid of the rot. Yes, Fisher, you are the dramatic one with that. Danya, be's bad with your ruthlessness, and you're the dramatic one. She doesn't think it's necessary to retreat when they literally have the cure to the rot below them in the Fire Sprite village. Fisher, on the other hand, is furious Danya is even willing to consider this, and ain't too happy when she accuses him of not making sacrifices. Oh my god, Danya, do not make me give you another L for that statement when you know better. Though I understand it is a dire situation, and no one is at their best right now. Except apparently Lorith, who is like, yeah, you both are right. Yes, we need Brimstone. And yes, we don't have to sacrifice the fire sprites to make this happen. He proposes, there's another way. But Fisher immediately is like, fuck no, and refuses. Danya outright laughs at Laura's other plan, saying that he's out of his mind. Okay, so we know that Lorith is proposing to go to Diaxis to get access to the brimstone they need, and that is where Saeris can seal her brimstone rune, as Lorith will later share the whole plan with Saeris because she can technically follow through with this idea without Fisher, but Fisher cannot go through with this plan without Saeris. That is the only way Lorith later convinces Saeris Fisher is not abandoning them for a self-sacrificial mission. And Saeris will swear that she will not act on whatever Lorith tells her, unless it is with Fisher's explicit knowledge and help. Who else thinks that blood oath will bite her in the ass? Like, what if he is literally unable to give his permission, and she's not able to experience his permission in a moment where she desperately needs to take action? I just see so many bad scenarios with that. But anyway, I have to assume that Saeris cannot seal her brimstone rune here in Yvelia because the brimstone is the fire sprite's blood, and sealing it with their brimstone would be fatal to them.
I'm sorry. I'm going with Lorith on this one. Fisher! It's the fucking end of the world, dude! Everyone's gonna die, and everything is gonna die. It's time to do one of the now 2 options you have before you. Like, L. I'm giving Fisher and the whole crew an L.
Except Lorith.
Except for Laura. No, Lorith, I'm giving a gold star, a praise be, you have options. Do something. And they're like, no, we're just going to run away. And I'm like, I understand needing them to run away so they can get further away from the rot. But run away and then you and Saeris go to Diaxis right fucking now. I'm sorry.
Diaxis is known to have brimstone, but it is such an outrageous idea that Lorith is the only one even willing to voice it, to consider it. I guess all my, maybe the idea is forming for Fisher moments that I've been having during this deep dive previously were not true whatsoever because he does not like this idea and refuses to consider it. And then he'll actually push Saeris to leave the room to have a moment. We don't know if Lorith knows the truth about Fisher's connection to Diaxis, though. I'm not even going to say that Styx is his father because I'm not opening up that can of worms, but you all know what I mean. We do know later on Fisher will admit to the outlines of a plan forming after this exchange here with Lorith, and that it's a long shot and very dangerous, but if it works, Saeris and the realm will be safe. Fisher will think about this plan, though, with going to Diaxis. Quote, the mess I would have to create would be catastrophic. Yes, because he would have to confirm his identity as a half-god, have to propose some kind of trade that we still get to learn about, and open all kinds of Pandora's boxes arriving in Diaxis, and getting a dragon. I still have so many questions about that, but I understand that's the point.
I understand that these are 2 very shitty options. Remember, dear friends, especially Saeris, we have the magical Edina's Game of Life pamphlet. What does the journal say? Flipping through the pages after the detail for Saeris not to take the antidote, she sees 6 words. Read on at the White Cliffs. The what now, Edina? But aha, that description is quite familiar for Fisher and Lorith, the White Cliffs of Inishtar, which are conveniently away from the rot. So the plan is made. Evacuate Kahlish, given how the rot is quickly approaching, and then take the newly arrived army to Inishtar, a village on the southern border of Galaria, where then it'll at least give them some time to figure out what the fuck to do next.
Fisher creates the biggest shadow gate he's ever created. Everybody, including these 15,000 Fae warriors who just showed up, evacuate through the shadow gate. They are all instructed to stay away from the actual town of Inishtar. They are not expecting us, they don't like Fae, and we don't want them to get the wrong idea and cause a gigantic bloodbath. The Fae warriors bring the large trunks of family jewelry to be made into relics and the silver from Zelvarin. They'll need to find a forge when they arrive and keep making these relics. Saeris, that's you. Our group also makes sure to bring the books from Cahlish because knowledge is power and extremely important. Never forget that. Save the books, preserve history.
With everyone going through the shadow gate, it is Fisher to bring up the rear, the nice posterior, if you will, and he'll close the shadow gate when he goes through it along with Onyx. But just as he steps in, it's swirling, he's traveling, he's almost there. And then a voice calls out to him, a voice he cannot ignore due to the magic of the Fearin Stone. Quote, "Hello, dog." Such a good chapter ender. Oh my God. We know that this is Bellicon calling, aka commanding, Fisher to him so he can trap the dog in an oubliette in the Wickerwood.
Okay, so I have a few theories for why Bellicon was able to command Oathbound Fisher to him, because it is a very fair question among the fandom. We learned earlier in the book that Bellicon can only wield this command of the Oathbound Fae if they are near him. And besides, Fisher's father's wards around Kahlish prevent Bellicon from being a threat in the first place. Prevent Bellicon from being a threat. So there are supposed to be two protections that prevent Bellicon from being able to do this. For one, I wonder if Bellicon somehow siphoned power from yesterday's Evenlight to be able to access Fisher in this not supposed to be possible way. Or, well, maybe or, the rot is breaking Fisher's father's wards, and that is how Bellicon can finally take Fisher as he steps through the shadow gate. Maybe Bellicon is even able to direct the rot and speed it up to reach Kahlish and put them all in a pickle in the first place, knowing that they will take a shadow gate to Inishtar somehow. I don't know. Stay with me here. So Bellicon can then grab Fisher as he goes through the shadow gate. And Madra, who we know Bellicon is working with, very specifically does have a horde waiting for the rest of the Kahlish crew in Inishtar. That would be killing several birds with one stone. So they travel safely and get settled into the small town of Inishtar, right? Wrong. But first, quick TLDR about Inishtar and its people, the Satyrs. Inishtar is a small town built into the sea's cliffside. The proud satyr people call Inishtar home, and they are architects, engineers, mathematicians who love art and music. You'll recognize satyrs from the movie Hercules. Phil is a satyr. In Greek folklore, satyrs are part man and part beast, usually a goat or a horse. Okay, now back to the action. We're through the shadow gate, and fuck, this is bad! The scene our characters, minus Fisher, walk into on the other side of the shadow gate is a straight up bloodbath. The air is thick with black smoke. A building at the bottom of the hill just exploded. Warriors and new fresh feeders are locked in battle. And when I say fresh feeders, I mean fresh. They used to be human, and some have not even fed for the first time, begging for the reprieve to feed. Help me! Saeris even watches the teeth fall out and get replaced with fangs. These feeders are that fresh. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I am under the impression these feeders are not infected with rot. There is no mention about them being infected like there usually is. It's mentioned later on at Orlena's house that the infected are spreading like wildfire, and this attack is the first of many. But these feeders don't seem infected. In fact, everyone assumes they are from Malcolm's horde and escaped. But Saeris can confirm without a doubt that is not the case, since they have no power over her authority. And again, these feeders are fresh from Zelvarin. They're dying way easier than the super feeders. Like, they are dying by the thousands when people cut them and use their magic on them. And while this bloodbath is terrible, the town and the people battling don't have the usual fear about the contagious rot, which makes me a little bit confused because the first round of feeders from Zelvarin were the ones who brought the rot.
You make a really good point, because they had to light them on fire, and even that didn't work, and they had to do a bunch of different things.
And the god swords didn't work against them either.
Yeah, but I don't see a scenario scenario in this moment in which these aren't super feeders, given that they're from Zilvarin?
So what I think is that initially, when the first feeders from Zilvarin with the rot came here, their purpose was to bring the rot, to infect. This purpose is for the masses to attack this small town, which again is why I think that Belicon and Madra are working together to make Fisher open a shadowgate and to attack our people here from at Inishtar.
I can get behind that. I can definitely get behind that. Yes.
On top of this chaotic scene, poor Hayden is passing out from going through the gate for the first time, and Fisher is nowhere to be found. Even with the Cahlish warriors who just evacuated here, our crew is still outnumbered. That was 15,000 warriors who just came through, and they are still outnumbered.
All around Saeris, feeders are setting their sights on her. While she's trying to protect Hayden, she is attacked by a female feeder. Lifting her blades just in time, Saeris plunges both tips through the feeder before she can land on Saeris. Light explodes from Saeris' right hand, flowing down to Aramar and into the feeder, lighting her up like a nightlight before she bursts into flames. This is cool. While this is happening, nearby a massive feeder in golden armor is feeding from a Fey warrior that is unable to fight it off. With a moment to breathe, Saeris and Hayden try to find anywhere for him to hide and not pass out anymore. But before they can figure out what the fuck is going on and where to go, Saeris is slammed into from behind. The feeder has Saeris pinned to the ground, and in trying to pull her leathers open so it can feed, Saeris slams the hilt of one of her blades into the feeder's face, and that's when she noticed that this feeder is fresh out of the oven. Its skin is still pink and it's able to talk. It's begging for help. This feeder appears to be about 20 years old, male and of course human, while wearing the Guardian armor. Saeris is cut off before we get a description of him. The feeder is way too heavy for Saeris to throw it off her. So she raises her blades so they're crossed with each other and slices through the feeder's neck, decapitating it. Gross!
There are feeders everywhere, and Saeris is in badass warrior mode right now. Her only goal is to find Hayden, and he is nowhere to be found. As she looks for him, she is decapitating these feeders left and right. Honestly, she's not paying attention to what's going on outside of her fight. That's okay, you're very focused. She does see the magic go off from Laura's godsword, but she is so distracted by finding Kingfisher and Hayden that everything else is basically background noise. Foley arrives on the scene, and while he's very helpful in this fight, especially being fully vampire and not a target of the feeders, he presents a big problem. Fisher is not at this battle, and no one in their inner circle knows where he is. He was right behind Foley. Where could he be?
Looking to Edina's Game of Life pamphlet for guidance, Saeris flips to the page that reads, "Read on at the White Cliffs." Okay, they're at the White Cliffs. Check. Flip to the next page and nothing. It says to read on after the trade. Something is missing. Yes, a very important something indeed. Listen, this suspension and storytelling is exactly what I love from this journal. It has consequences. It has mystery. But without Edina's guidance, the crew is like, what do we do? What do we do? What does the trade mean? I would also like to know, friends. But until then, it is time for us to meet up again in Inishtar and figure out what to do since Edina is not helping.
Before they went through the Shadowgate and into this unexpected battle, Taelena said that she had someone she trusted here in the small town at the White Cliffs. So Saeris, Foley, Hayden, Lorth, and Carrion find themselves in this small house overlooking the cliff thanks to the power of following a smell. We learn that this is home to a satyr named Orleas, who is friends with Taelena. Yes, she and her mate Maynir got Everlane here, and Iseabail too, but there's no Tal or Zavina here. Zavina darted off into the crowd as soon as they began leaving the battlefield, and Tal went on a feeder blood boil, hack 'em all down killing spree, finally fighting on the right side and expecting to die from this battle as he throws himself into the feeder fight. More on him soon though.
With the crew all together, it's time to figure out what the literal fuckity-fuck Zilvarin super feeders, not super feeders, were fighting them here at Inishtar. Because there is no Quicksilver pool anywhere nearby. This is a huge revelation. Out of the two closest Quicksilver pools, one is across the sea, which the feeders would not be able to swim across, and the other is in northern Galaria, which would have taken these feeders days to travel that distance. And these feeders were fresh.
Plus, the attack on the infected feeders at the beginning of the book at the war camp Erin, they were also Zelvarin and did not come from a quicksilver pool. They just appeared on those banks. They clearly did not go through the Amatreath or Cahlish quicksilver pools.
So this can only mean one thing. Madra has found a way to travel between this realm and Zelvarin without a quicksilver pool. Dun dun dun! We were wondering last book about how the heck Heron knew about the obsidian maze when he lived in Zelvarin and the quicksilver pools were dormant. This was before Saeris drew solace and opened the pools. I bet you anything this was what she was doing to glean information between Malcolm, Heron, Belicon, and Madra. But I don't think Madra went because she needed to stay in Zelvarin. But the only question remains, how the fuck is she doing this?
It's big plot reveal time. Inter-realm travel without quicksilver is unheard of. It would take an excessively insane amount of power to even consider opening a portal between realms. The level of power that would take 1,000 years to steal and require a whole city to fuel enough? Oh my god, Madra's been stealing magic from the city of Zelvarin for the last 1,000 years. That is how she has had enough power stored up to do the unthinkable with this inter-realm travel. But what does it mean for Zelvarin to be the source of magic? How is that even possible? I'll explain it as best as I understand it. I have a feeling, though, that we will learn a lot more about all this in Book 3 as a main plot. The strongest magical symbol is the circle. It's the symbol of forever and carries magic on a loop, continually giving it strength. So take that concept and apply it to what we know about the city layout of Zelvarin. It is fashioned after the shape of a wheel. The city is a circle. What's more, the walls within the city that divide the wards create a sigil. So the layout of Zelvarin is literally a circular rune, the most powerful symbol of magic. Plus, we know that magic cannot be eradicated from a city. Once it takes root, it never leaves, always finding a way to thrive. This means that Zelvarin is the biggest piece of spell work ever created that our characters know of. And a crazed immortal queen, member of the Triumvirate, reigns over the city and has possession of this much power. Since we know from Carrion's bonus chapter that it was only 300 plus years ago that Madra had the walls erected for the circular city, does that mean she created a specific sigil to siphon the power? We also know that before Zelvarin was ruled by a monarchy, it was led by a council of magic users, which leads me to believe there has always been magic in the circular city. I'm guessing Madra adjusted the sigil from just like a circle to create the wards and all of that and the walls within it to create a more complex rune for that layout. And when she adjusted it, that is when she was then able to siphon the magic to her and steal it directly from its inhabitants. I'm going to say this again, and I'm sorry I sound like a broken record, but friends, what was the day before the feeder attack on Inishtar? The Evenlight Ball. I really do think Zelvarin's Evenlight Festival was happening at the same time as the Evenlight Ball in Amatreath, and something about the Evenlight amplifies the magic in Zelvarin even more, siphoning extra power that enabled Madra to transfer this many feeders to Evelia. Because remember, these feeders outnumbered 15,000 warriors. That's a lot of feeders to move between realms. You need a shit ton of power. And again, I want to know, what was the point of sending this many feeders to this location? It clearly was not to be the big end-all be-all war. It was literally to a small backwater town where, again, I think that Belicon and Madra knew our crew was heading there. I admit I am definitely very confused about what this all means for Madra to use the city itself to siphon the power of the inhabitants. It sounds like the sigil Zelvarin makes targets its inhabitants and takes their power, which is what the source of the city's power is. How exactly that would work and the nuances, I have no idea. But the important takeaway is basically that the city of Zelvarin is an extremely powerful source of magic that Madra has access to.
So this means that Madra could literally open up a portal anywhere and deposit more feeders whenever she likes. So this needs to be stopped like fucking now. But how? They would need to ward the entire realm of Evelia from Madra. As Iseabail puts it, that kind of spell work would require an entire coven of witches and at least 10 very powerful Fae warriors to build a spell that monumental. I bet money that this is the overarching plot for Book 3. But that's not all, because they also would need something that is precious to Madra. Not something she just touched once, but something she loved, something personal if they're going to block their magic. magic. But oh, because remember that golden-clad guardian feeder from earlier? Time for the guardians to do something fucking useful for the first time in their lives. After convincing a satyr to hand over one of these dead guardian feeders, because there were multiple, Carrion and Saeris find it, the plague bag. We've known about plague bags since chapter 1 of book 1. These bags are held by believers, people who think that by holding one of these plague bags close to their person, it will ward off the completely non-existent plague that's taken over the third ward. And in these plague bags, they have ashes from the magic users who Madra burned all of those years ago, and her hair, something she holds very dear to herself.
In Chapter 7 of Quicksilver, Saeris explains that Madra is the closest thing they have to a god in Zelvarin, because that's how she fashions herself. And believers carry strands of her hair in pouches on their belts, these plague bags, along with ash from the funeral pyres of the sacrificed. So I understand that it is common knowledge with all of this about Madra's hair and where it could be found and all of that. It is only for the most honorable, the devout believers, to carry precious, godlike Queen Madra's hair with them. I have to point out again how much I love these kind of moments in series, where a small, seemingly inconsequential detail from the first few chapters in Quicksilver comes back into play for the larger plot. It's these kind of details that make me go, ah! Why I love deep diving.
Halfway up the cliff face, there's something that catches Saeris' eye. Taladeus is standing in the distance alone. But not entirely alone. Zovina's body lays next to him. Not dead by Tal's hand, despite how much he knew she was a terrible person. No, she was drained dry by the feeders in the attack. So all of Tal's attempts to save her, to change her back to a fae so she wouldn't die as a vampire, it was all futile.
It hurts so much to hear how Tal describes how he felt about Zovina. Like Saeris loving Fisher, but he wouldn't care about her and even takes pleasure in hurting her. Saeris cannot even fathom that possibility. Tal recognizes how insane his love has been. He's always known Zovina was a horrible person, but he still willingly became a vampire to follow her. And now, with her dead, Tal has been waiting to feel something. He's been looking at her corpse and being like, I need to feel, like, waiting for his grief to hit him. Any emotion for the female he crazily loved despite it all. And he doesn't feel anything. To the point where Tal wonders how she kept him so in love with her. Was it magic? Was it something else? Because as soon as she died, he feels like he woke up. None of it was real. All of his life sacrifices, leaving his betrothed Everlane, becoming a vampire, and everything terrible that has followed from that. It was all literally for nothing, for something that was not real. My heart aches, literally aches for this fictional character. I just want to reach through the pages and hug Tal. I'm convinced that this is exactly what Zovina did. I think she used magic or a spell to make Tal fall in love with her. And when she died, the magic died with her. Of course, there's also the possibility that when she died, he felt like he woke up, where it was like, oh my God, like now that she's actually gone, like I can breathe. Like I don't need that. But I think there was magic at play. I really do.
I almost like it better if there wasn't. I almost like it better if just her presence was the magic. That was constant. Like, you know, an ex who... It's not until like one day you just fucking wake up and you're like, oh no. It's like the goggles are off. And I wonder if it really took Zovina dying to have those goggles come off.
I guess so. I mean, like, he did make sure that she didn't die just a day ago.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
But yeah, I love how it is up for our interpretation, though.
Yeah.
And no matter what, though, at least he is now free from Malcolm, from being a vampire, from Zovina. But with that freedom comes full clarity that Tal's entire existence has been a fucking joke.
Tal was ready to die back in the Hall of Tears. He then was pleading to go back to his homeland in Balin's End so he could die there by the rot or by something else. Then he arrives here, and even the feeders don't do him the honor of killing him by Zovina's side.
He was so sure that when he ran straight into the fight with the feeders, death would take him. But eventually, there were no more feeders, and Tal was still standing. He didn't even mean to still be alive at that.
So in a final attempt, he dragged Zovina up here to the cliffs to give Zovina to the sea and then to jump in after her. I hope he took her Lord of Midnight ring off and pocketed it because I just realized if he throws her off and she still has it, that is...
Yes!
though, dear. But as he says, because that's not important right now, this is emotional. As he says, quote, once again, the fates have snatched back my peace. Oh, that's such a good line.
Tal had been a vampire for 1,063 years, and during all that time, he had to stay in the dark, avoid the light all the time. And here he is, the dawn of the sun shining down on him. And for the first time in over 1,000 years, Tal literally and metaphorically feels light on him. Quote, how can I consign myself to another endless dark when I've been given back the light? I love that line so much. And when we get a beautiful character arc like this, you know what that means. It's Tal's turn for a god sword. With ease, now that she has her Quicksilver rune sealed, Saeris makes a god sword for Tal. His blood is deemed worthy. The Quicksilver is speaking to him, and its name is Tessarin, which means redemption. Oh, how fitting for Tal, who is finally able to live in the light and look forward, redeem himself for himself. From now on, you'll always fight on our side, Tal.
I also love that redemption is the name of the chapter because that just hammers in how important this arc is for Talladeus. God, I love his character. Marching down the street, carrying a multitude of weapons, including pitchforks and brooms, the satyrs are headed straight to Saeris. And they don't look too happy. In fact, they are pretty fucking pissed. We know that this isn't the case, and they're actually going up to Carrion to welcome him, but that is not the vibe these pitchforks are giving off as the satyrs march through the streets. They are demanding to know where the Forgotten King is. They know Carrion is here. They've heard the news sweeping its way across the Southlands. Rurik's boy has returned, and he travels with the Bane, and they're here to swear fealty to their rightful king, complete a beautiful song that welcomes him into their hearts. From the beginning of this book, Carrion's been not anti his birthright, but more so burying his head in the sand. And like we've discussed back when him and Fisher were in Zelvarin and looking at his drawings, we know Carrion's indifference is not from a lack of caring. Instead, it was from him not feeling like he's good enough or prepared enough for this role. It wasn't until recently that we learn he's starting to do more and more research about the Avalian throne and what it means to be king. And here are his people, the ones who are asking for him specifically. At first, he thinks they're going to plunge their horns into him, and not in a fun way. And it's like, Carrion, how long do you think he's been terrified of the potential outcome of him coming to Avalia and them all wanting to kill him? But the outcome, it's not what he's expecting. Instead, they bow to him. And it's understandably overwhelming, because what the fuck could he possibly say to these satyrs to make them believe that he is worthy of them to bow to? Not to mention the pressure that anything he says will be taken as tantamount. He could very easily accidentally declare war against Belicon, even though they kind of already have, but like even more war, bigger war, big war, by confirming that he is the rightful heir.
The Forgotten King, this realm has waited 1,700 plus years for, gathers his courage and his words. It is time for the moment of truth that historians will document for the ages to come. The last Dianthus, the rightful heir to the Evelian throne, addresses his people and declares, I really like your horns. I love this fairy Carrion moment. And as much of comic relief as this is, considering how much he had to dance around topics with big consequences with this big speech that he had to deliver, I think he did pretty darn good with this address. He didn't land on any landmines, at least. At least, hopefully, there's nothing weird with the horns situation. And I'm just so excited for Carrion heading into book 3. What a sweet scene to end his arc on for this book. This is our last scene with Carrion before everything else hits the fan in book 2. Our Zelvarin smuggler has come such a long way, and I think this is such a fantastic both ending to his book 2 realization that yeah, he's going to have to step up here. And people want him to step up too. And so much is in store for him for book 3. I cannot wait.
Now, this whole time they've been in Inishtar, something has been nagging at Saeris. It's like a memory that she can't seem to grasp. until it finally dawns on her. To be honest, shouts to her memory, because I feel like I never would have remembered a small detail like this. Way earlier, when Saeris was at the library in Sanisrath, she had her run-in with one paper stargazer, the one that fell out of the library, the magic leaving it behind as she and it left the barriers. And Saeris puts that piece of paper into its little home in Cahlish, a now abandoned and full of rot Cahlish. I love moments like this in a story where like you were saying earlier, where everything comes back into play. And Saeris knows exactly how to get to Kahlish, and it doesn't require a shadow gate.
We need Danya to knock Saeris out, obviously. Saeris is on a mission to become unconscious so she can go back to the dreamscape where she always reunites with Fisher. She's too hyped up to fall asleep. I would be too. So time for someone to knock her out. And who better than Danya, who would be most delighted and sincere in punching the shit out of Saeris. Honestly, I would go to Danya first, too. At least you know that she'd really punch you. But before Saeris is mentally sent off to Kahlish, which we'll open with next episode, we get the smallest sliver of the beginning of a redemption arc for Danya. Like the teeniest, tiniest sliver. Because you see, she is bitter and hateful toward Fisher, not because she truly feels like he abandoned her and his warriors, but because she is ashamed that she chose the easy path of believing Belicon's lies when Fisher disappeared 110 years ago. She felt guilty for leaving Fisher in Gilthry, and all this rage is actually a shield, so she doesn't have to face her own true emotions. That she left Fisher and then chose to believe their enemies' lies instead of face the painful truth of not being able to help Fisher. Which, yes, makes absolute sense. Danya is still ruthless and deserves her L's, but Saeris laying this all out to Danya's face, quite bluntly, offers new insight into Danya's character that not even she can face herself. Before we jump into our foreshadowing section, let's take a moment to highlight where things stand with most of our characters. Since this is the last episode, we're in the southern part of the realm with most of our party. The fire sprites decided to stay in Kahlish despite the rot's invasion. They believe their brimstone will protect them from the rot, and they need to be in their hot environment to survive. Carrion, Lorth, Hayden, Talena, Manir, an unconscious Everlane, now Fae Tal, still vampire Foley, Danya, and the Evelian Fae warriors are still in Inishtar, settled in at the camp the Fae made outside the destroyed town here at these white cliffs. The satyrs of Inishtar recognize Carrion as the Forgotten King. I bet word is about to spread very fast about him around the realm. While the large trunks of family rings, etc., and silver from Zelvarin are here as well, unfortunately, there is no quicksilver here for Saeris to make relics. And no Saeris to make the relics either. The Fae are helping the satyr people of Inishtar to rebuild their destroyed town after the feeder attack. I would like to point out that Inishtar's healing center and town hall were very strategically targeted to hurt this community. And the cause of the explosions are still a mystery. That is literally stated on the page that they are still a mystery, which we know means we need to keep that in mind for next book. I don't think the feeders are in right enough of a mind to purposefully locate these buildings and then cause the explosions. Or maybe they did as they were literally turning, and that was part of why Madra sent them through before being fully turned into feeders. Or, maybe it was Heron. JK, mostly. Maybe. Anyway. I want him to be dead in the nicest way possible. Anyway, bottom line is I've got my eye on these targeted explosions and who specifically targeted them. Iseabail is desperate to get back to Nevercross as soon as possible, but needs Fisher's shadowgate in order to travel that far of a distance. So she's stuck in Inishtar until he shows up. While it's not confirmed, there is also an expectation for Iseabail to get her powerful clan to help our group ward and save the realm. The Fae and witches will need to work together to have enough power to save Evelia. So Iseabail needs to convince the witches. In the meantime, Talena and Iseabail have Madra's hair in their possession, one step closer to warding the realm from her. And the last all these characters know of with Saeris is that she's knocked out by Danya after she promises Lorth that she thinks she knows how to find Fisher, and that she will come back to make the relics. I bet Lorth and Carrion will figure out what she meant to do with finding Fisher, since they both know about the cabin sexcapades. Then she will physically disappear when the Tazrax transports her to the Wicker Wood. So they'll probably all be a little bit confused by her just, poofing. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work, but they do know that they have to trust whatever Saeris is up to. She has a plan clearly in place here. And I also believe that Lorth is trusting she and hopefully Fisher are on their way to take action with the plan to go to Diaxis. So I'm thinking he knows what Saeris and Fisher are up to with sealing her Brimstone rune. Okay, for everybody, let's tap into our inner oracle and turn our full attention to important foreshadowing moments for the rest of this book and speculations for book 3 and beyond. While Fisher is helping relieve Saeris' stress before the Evenlight Ball, we get more insight into his shadow magic and specifically how it comes from his father. Nicole, is this technically part of Shadow Daddy Watch?
This is absolutely Daddy Watch, 100%.
Yes! In Kingfisher's POV, we learn that, quote, the gods had gifted my father with his shadows so that he might do good with them. My father had passed them down to me for the same purpose. Okay, so I think I'm officially saying that Fisher's father, Finrin, who we've been hearing so much about these past 2 books, is not Styx. Finrin might be half god with his father as Styx. And it was this god, not gods plural, that gifted this baby Finrin with shadow magic, to which he then passes that magic on to his son. I understand that this doesn't really line up with what we know about Fisher needing to be half god to wield shadows, but I really do think that there is a missing piece of the puzzle that we, the readers, cannot know yet, that makes these shadows a gift to Fisher's father and then to him, versus a biological consequence of bangity bang banging to create a half god. I think that there are more ways to create a half god than we mere mortal readers are capable of imagining. I also wonder if Fisher being Zar's champion has anything to do with why Finrin passed his shadow magic down to Fisher. Like, is this all part of a bigger plan to set the chess pieces for what's to come in book 3 that will require Fisher to need his shadows to save the world?
I think I am almost ready. Not quite, but almost ready to hop on the Finrin is not Styx train. So they are 2 separate people. I love this idea that Styx was Finrin's father, or he was gifted the shadow magic by the gods, like you were saying. To be honest, this is getting very confusing. The reason I'm not ready to fully put myself in that camp yet is because Fisher says that, quote, my father had passed them, the shadows, down to me for the same purpose. And then he says, go get our father at the very end. And I think I will be ready to make an official proclamation next episode, but for right now, I'm holding on to just that one little my father passed them down to me for the same reason. He got his shadow magic from Styx, given what we learn next episode.
I think that he gets it from Styx, but him being Fisher's father is not the traditional sense of biological father. I want to highlight a cool bit of magic that Saeris wields. When Alget, despite the Queen's command, tries to rifle through Saeris' mind but is blocked by her mental wall, Saeris imagines knives pointing at that wall and then sends her wall down long enough to send the knives through and into Alget's mind before securing her mental wall back up. This makes Alget's eyes roll into the back of her head and blood gush down her nose. What a crazy magic you have there, Saeris. I have no idea what kind of magic it is, and I don't think it's associated with the alchemy, but very cool. This is definitely a flaccid magic system, Nicole. I'm sticking with that.
I concur. And if you don't know that joke, you should listen to Fantasy Fanfellas.
We learn more about Widow's Bane, the herb that Saeris took to dull her pain at the end of Quicksilver. Fisher explains that if you allow a little dewdrop from the flower to come into contact with your skin, you die. And it's only safe to chew after the poison has been cleaned from its petals and the leaves have been steeped and dried for a few days. While I love Fisher channeling his inner plant watch, I do think that Widow's Bane and the poisonous effects of it are going to come back into the story. I worry that a character is going to fall ill to it. Its lethalness has been mentioned in both books, and I just feel in my gut that something's going to happen in book 3 with it.
Oh, dear. Okay, I want to point out another tick in my Carrion is an oracle theory. When our crew returns to Cahlish, Hayden is the only one downstairs because he just happened to be downstairs, courtesy of Carrion telling him he needed to go fetch something. I think Carrion knew, or at least the oracle in him knew, that all of the crew was coming back and he sent Hayden down there to welcome them. Carrion mentions Saeris having a possible potential power of invisibility. He's Carrion, so I know he's joking, but I don't think that's out of the question.
Right? I don't know.
I don't know.
There's a flaccid magic system. Anything's possible. Actually, I don't think anything can be flaccid around Fisher, to be honest. Okay, excuse me. Saeris says to Carrion, quote, imagine what would have happened if there had been someone of royal blood to stand up against Madra. The people would have... And then she trails off. But is this foreshadowing? When they get rid of Madra, will there be someone of royal blood to claim Zelvarin and help fix Madra's reign? Or will it go back to how it used to be, where it's ruled by a council of magic users?
I'm hoping for the latter.
Me too.
Yeah. Hayden has a moment of rare clarity and empathy where he says that he realizes everything Saeris did for him back in the third was for the betterment of his life, and he realizes he wants to be useful and not a burden. I want to believe him. I really do. But why do I feel like he's going to do something that is a burden and makes their life infinitely harder, thinking it would do the opposite? Like, he's like, I don't want to be a burden. And he like runs into the hands of danger. And then suddenly they're like, well, fuck, you just made our lives infinitely harder.
Okay, meanwhile, here I am thinking that this scene with him and Saeris in the rain is really moving, partly because this is his first time experiencing rain. We haven't been in Hayden's head this book, but we know how jarring this must be to be in Evenlight after the water scarcity of Zelvarin. And he's like, I don't know how I belong here or who I'm supposed to be. And back in Zelvarin, he just expected his big sis to tell him. He's very slowly beginning his redemption arc. I think he's going to end up back in Zelvarin when everything's fixed.
I think he's dead. I think he's
actually. I do think that he's going to die too. But if he survives, he's going back to Zelvarin.
I don't see a world in which he lives through this series, but you never know. You never know. We learn a really cool aspect of magic with Iseabail's powers. She has the ability to see into someone's soul and basically tell if they are good, bad, or kind of, whatever, in a moment. I love this, and I really hope we see more of this in book 3.
We see Lorith use his powers too. What a fascinating bit of lore to learn that the Fae who live in the wild northern tundra believe their magic is sacred and accidentally stolen from nature as they were being born. So to use their gifts is to flout that gift in front of the gods. Using magic is a sin worse than murder. And even though Lorith does not believe this about his magic, old habits die hard, and he almost never uses his innate magic, where he can at least create bands of energy. I don't know what else it does, but energy magic stuff. This stretch of chapters has 2 mentions of mind, body, and soul. Friends, remember what the Trioprima represents? Quicksilver is the mind, Brimstone is the soul, and salt is the body. This could be a coincidence since it is a common description, or it could be a nod to the Trioprima.
Tal jokes that Fisher and Saeris will have figured out a way to stop the rot by tomorrow night. Well, tomorrow night they will be going to Diaxis, so he's not wrong. But technically, they have already figured out not 1, but 2 ways to stop the rot. I'm just saying.
I just want to make sure we're on the same 2 ways, right? Okay, so one is to go back to Zelvarin and kill Madra, figure out how these infected feeders are coming from her realm. No, you're going with the other option of killing all the fire sprites?
We actually have 3 ways to kill.
Because this is the other big plot that our characters still need to do, is to defeat Madra in the first place. And then number 2 is obviously the Brimstone. One way is to get it from the fire sprites, but that's bad, so we're not even considering that as an option. And instead, it is to get Saeris' Brimstone rune sealed in Diaxis. And for Fisher to make this trade so he can get his dragon, which it seems they breathe not just fire, but also Brimstone.
So they have 3 ways they can...
We're not counting the fire sprite way, Nicole.
I'm sorry, it's an option. I am counting it. It's not an option we're using, because that's not great. But if we also have the option of... Well, technically, going back to Zelvarin and killing off Madra would not stop the rot.
Correct, but it is still a necessary thing that should probably get done.
I agree. I do think they have one that's a little more immediate than the other.
At least they're on their way to get the Brimstone.
It is time to enter Alget's library with Guru the Shadow Cat, where every episode, Lexi guides us through a world-building topic to help us deepen our understanding of this world and its magic.
Today's Alget's library topic is what we know about witches' magic and how it relates to the blood curse cure. Quick introduction to the witches of this realm. The witches are a secretive group, keeping to themselves, especially since there is a lot of prejudice toward them. They have clan lands in northern Galaria past the Shallow Mountains. Their political seat is called Nevercross, a city that has stood for millennia and is protected from the outside world. This is also the location of their schools and where they heal their sick. Nevercross also has underground catacombs below the city that house their histories, but only guild witches are allowed to go down there. We know of two clan names, the Balkadir witches, where Iseabail is heir, and that's the clan that discovered the cure to the blood curse, and the Kinross clan, which kicked Alget out for using dark magic. Speaking of witch magic, here's what we know about what I will call regular witch magic. Witches have the ability to cast spells that the Fae can't. This includes, but is certainly not limited to, they are proficient in blood magics, creating and curing the vampires, creating magical items like Fisher's Pendant, holding a body in stasis like Everlane. They're also very good at scrying as well. Yes, Iseabail is good at what she does. It's just really hard to find Renfis and Fisher with everything going on, okay? As well as using a strand of hair, witches are able to accomplish many things. But we don't know exactly what this is besides building a gigantic ward around a realm with a bunch of other extra things that go into that. Witch magic cannot affect the dead, and there are some witches who have the ability to look into someone's soul, read the blueprint of who they are at their core. That's so cool. I'm sure I'm barely scraping the surface with witch magic, but you get the idea. Then there's the forbidden dark magic. Dun dun dun. The witches are sticklers for honor and tradition. They are rule makers, not rule breakers. I love saying that. I'm going to say that every opportunity I get. The High Council outlawed dark magic millennia ago. To use it is to throw out their ethics and morals. No witch would ever do that, right, Iseabail? One form of dark magic, at least among witches, I'm not talking about vampire dark magic, is the witch mark. A witch mark is used creating borrowed dark magic and lends power to the one who binds it. These are massive sources of magic, but if left unchecked, it steals power from everything around it, eventually becoming an open gateway to the demon realm that cannot be closed. Moving to the related topic of the blood curse, as we know, thousands of years ago, the Fae were inflicted with a blood curse. Rumor is that the witches are the source of the blood curse, though at least the Balkadir clan denies any involvement and feels they proved their innocence when they helped find the cure. We know that the blood of King Ruach Dianthus, Carrion's father, his blood was used to create the blood curse, and that the curse has caused many to distrust all witches. Real quick, you can check out our Quicksilver episode 5, Saeris' library, for more about the blood curse and how it turned Fae into vampires. Malcolm was the very first to be affected by the curse thousands of years ago. When the cure was discovered, many of the Yevelian Fae took it because they were horrified by the monsters they'd become. But there were those, like Malcolm, who preferred being the monsters and chose to not take the cure and thus stay immortal with dark power. Over the centuries, Malcolm killed off others who kept the curse too, until he was the only OG vampire left and created the Blood Court. That is why all high bloods are tied to him. More than once, the witches have tried to convince the vampires to reconsider taking the cure. The Fae Crowns tried too. Ruach Dianthus, Royan of Galaria, and Shara from Lycia. Shara, I've never heard your name before here, but yay, I see you now. I guess that you are the mother of the current queen. That's what we're going to go with. The vampires refused every single time anybody approached them about the cure. So let's talk about that cure now. Yevelian King Ruach Dianthus charged 5 witch families with the task of finding the original cure to the curse. Of these 5, the Balkadir clan was instrumental in finding the cure. They created the cure, and while we don't know any more about the mechanics, we do know that the cure is a clear liquid, and it is an antidote to the witch's blood that kills vampires. It's my understanding a vampire does not need to drink the witch's blood before taking the cure/antidote. Iseabail and Tal, however, knew that no vampire would willingly take the cure, so they ensured the only way for them to live to see another day would be by taking the cure, hence poisoning them with Iseabail's blood first. Die a vampire, or live by taking the cure to the blood curse and transitioning back. If the cure is taken, then the vampire will undergo a painful transformation, resulting in them being reborn back to the living and back into their natural forms. And that is what we know. I feel like that's just so little, but that's what we know, everybody.
Let us close out this episode with prancing through the snow with Onyx to discuss our favorite moments from the stretch of chapters. My goat watch, it returns! During the dance at the Evenlight Ball, Saeris looks up at the painting depicting a Bacchanalia, which is a Roman festival. And in that painting, a man is doing something to a goat. Sir, stop that now! No!
Bad, Aberforth, bad!
Fisher talking about his mother and how there have been days where he's felt her presence so keenly. First, I love this description of grief and feeling like the person who's died is still with you. And I also wonder if he felt her presence extra because Edina's soul has been chilling in Avelia in this in-between, waiting to speak to Saeris.
I think that's exactly it. I think that's what he's confirming here.
Yeah.
Fisher realizing that his mother has indeed been here with him all this time. Him feeling her presence wasn't just in his head, and that's a little bit more comfort for him to find.
I love Saeris' reaction to Zavina's dramatic outburst, which is manipulating the metal of a candelabra to pin Zavina down on the ground so she's on her hands and knees pinned to the floor. And then Saeris drags her chair over so she can kick her legs up onto her back. Iconic. Guru rubbing his little body against Foley as he's petitioning to be the Lord of Midnight. You cannot come between a man and his cat. I'm sorry, Alget. I hope that you brought Guru wherever you slithered off to, but I also don't because I want Foley to have his Guru. The banter in the dance scene is so top tier. From Fisher saying that dancing is a lot like fighting and fucking, and he's impaled quite a few people on the end of his sword. Oh my god. Also, in that short scene, he corrects Saeris when she says his rooms back in Cahlish, and he says our rooms. Ugh. Melt. I melt for moments like this. Everything from Fisher telling Carrion to stay in the room as they're talking about, what to do with the blood court now dismantled. And Carrion pokes at Fisher for missing him. And maybe Fisher did, but he's more so giving Carrion a chance and letting him be part of these big conversations as he views this as prep for the Avalian throne. Saeris asks Fisher to hold her, and I love moments like this, because Saeris is a very harsh FMC. Like Fisher was saying, she bares her teeth to the world. And I remember the first time I asked this of Brett, and only after he cuddled me for like an hour, he was like, whoa, you've never said that before. that was crazy.
I feel so seen by Carrion's room. Maybe not with the plants, because mine would not be alive, but he has 2 wardrobes, yet all of his clothes are scattered in piles across the room. I also have 2 wardrobes, 2 dressers, and also all of my clothes are thrown about the room, my closet and in my room, and the bathroom, and everywhere. It has always been that way. My room is always a clothing mess disaster, and I apologize to my parents first, and now my husband for having to live with me like that.
I love that Saeris is wearing Fae attire and Fae war braids as they head to Inishtar. Like this, that's just such beautiful symbolism.
There was so much going on in this episode that we really didn't get a chance to shine the spotlight on how Saeris is truly embracing her identity as Fisher's mate. Once she's no longer bound to the blood court, she gets to lean fully into the sense of connection and home with her mate. This feels big for Saeris' character arc and how much she is stepping into who she wants to be. And in turn, Saeris makes Fisher want to be better. The way that she embodies hope and perseverance makes him believe. And he's been a grumpy, pessimistic motherfucker forever, and it's just so sweet. When Carrion grumbles about how it's Saeris' fault he's so cold, she just had to fall in love with an outcast warrior from a frozen wasteland instead of the tropical territory. And then I love how Saeris is like, that's your frozen wasteland. I see Carrion somehow using his magic to make Avelia warmer, assuming he eventually does become king. He does not like the cold. This should not be as funny as I find it, but maybe it's just a big sister thing. Right before they go through the shadowgate to Inishtar, Saeris is so kind and patient as she prepares her brother for how shitty it's about to be on the other side. But it's okay. You're not going to feel good. You'll probably pass out, but it's all okay. And then when they're there and there's like literally a feeder attack going on, she has to change tactics real quick and start slapping hate and be like, now is not the time. Wake up! I I love how Saeris loves the ritual of asking someone what the name of their new godsword is. It's such a small but sweet detail into her character growth, and I really love that. Danya might be frustrating most of the time, 99% of the time, but 3 cheers for this female who is fantastic at getting shit done and spearheading a bunch of logistics and putting everyone to work. I see you. I see that logistical mind you have there, Danya, and I applaud it. And there we have it, friends. That was a very long episode. Thank you so much for sticking with us through that. Thank you so much for listening. And we only have one more episode left. Oh my goodness.
Next Monday will be our final deep dive of the Fae and Alchemy series for now, with episode 7 covering chapters 46 through 52. Diaxis, the official Daddy Watch. Here we come.
We would love to give the biggest warm welcome to our newest feral fans in the fan club. You all, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much for joining Catherine B, Alaire, Jessica, Sheridan H, and Jamie K. Welcome.
Yay! And if you're like, hey, I want my name shouted on the podcast and be shouted with all this love too, join our fan club at fantasyfangirls.com/fan club. Link is also in the show notes.
Thank you, as always, to our master librarian, aka our content researcher, Brooke, and of course, our executive producer, aka our sanity manager and co-host of the Fantasy Fan Fellas, Hayden.
We are very active on social media with weekly trivia, book guides. There is so much going on social media this week, friends. You should really check it out. Please be sure to follow us on Instagram and / TikTok at Fantasy Fangirls Pod. And if you're watching this on YouTube or want to watch on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button to keep following along. Same goes for Fantasy Fan Fellas, to give them a follow at Fantasy Fan Fellas.
While you're hitting buttons and hitting follows, do not forget to hit that 5-star rating and reviewing button. It is so helpful, not just for this show, but for any podcast you listen to rate it, to review it, to write a little love note, especially. It's so nice, and it's like a little warm hug. Thank you to all of you who have already done it. And last but not least, share this episode with your fellow Brimstone friends. If you would plan to take down an entire court with someone and actually tell them what you're thinking, this is a great episode to send to that fellow schemer.
All right, everybody. Thank you all so much. We will see you next week for our final Brimstone episode. Bye-bye.
Bye. Where there is drama, even a lick of it, there is always Zavina, who is livid at the prospect that their queen didn't think